This audio presentation of Love is Freedom by Dr. Joseph Murphy is brought to you by AudioEnlightenment.com. Copyright 2012. All rights reserved. Forward. True mysticism is the ability inwardly to sense the invisible things of the spirit, and through feeling present them to the intellect. In discerning the deep things of the spirit, the intellect must follow the intuition, and it will never follow it in vain. For that which the intuition reveals, the intellect may later analyze. It is this feeling back towards spiritual prototypes that marks the work of a true mystic in any age. In this book, Joseph Murphy, one of the outstanding mystics in the metaphysical field, has presented a depth of feeling seldom expressed through the written word. Those who have had the privilege of listening to the discourse of Dr. Murphy have felt that which was not spoken, the impartation of a spiritual essence which can only be felt. I am certain that the reader of this book will find a response in their consciousness to that invisible and ineffable beauty which it suggests. Ernest Holmes, Los Angeles, California. Chapter 1. The Scripture said, God is love. God is all, over all, through all in all. Love, therefore, is resident in all men and all things, so let us seek it in all. Seek, and ye shall find. Yes, if you truly look for the God love in the other, it will shine forth in all its pristine glory. The first thing we do when we see another is to look for that divine love to radiate through his thoughts, words, and deeds. If we truly recognize it as being within him, we must radiate his love. As within, so without. As above, so below. As in heaven, or consciousness, so on earth, manifestation. We must not let fear step in, for it is the opposite of love. Fear is the inversion of love, or love turned upside down. There is only love. If a man recognizes love in a dog, the animal responds in kind. When we fear the dog or any other animal, the latter senses it and strikes up a similar response in him. When we are faced with a problem, let us become still, feel within ourselves the divine love is working through the situation now. Realize only harmony and peace prevail, then dismiss it from our minds, knowing that it is so. We will find a perfect solution is offered to us, which blesses us. By illustration, a woman told me that her son was an aviator during the war. Each night while he was away, during her meditation, she would take her son in her arms, realizing that divine love enfolded him in the midst of the chaos of war. She knew the aura of his love surrounded the plane, always make it invisible to the so-called enemy. The boy was never attacked. The enemy planes never saw him. So how could they attack him? Jesus disappeared in the multitude likewise. The multitude of human thoughts and false beliefs disappear when the shining armor of truth comes rushing in, lighting up the whole house. Then the dawn appears and the shadows flee away. Chapter 2. Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, and have not charity, I am become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. 1 Corinthians 13:1. This is the greatest love epic ever written. If men and women were to meditate upon the inner meaning of this chapter, which is one of the greatest sections in the Bible, their lives would be transformed. It is only too true that men using high-sounding words write beautiful poetry and give wonderful sermons. But unless these words are permeated with love and feeling, they are empty. For example, a man told me recently that his mother was dying. His sister visited him, and together they went to the hospital, where the girl began to pray audibly. He said her words were beautiful, poetic, and flowery. When she had finished, she said to him, "Were the words not lovely?" He replied, "Yes, my dear, they were." On their way down from the ward, the sister turned to him and saying, "Mother hasn't got a chance, poor thing. She will die shortly." He told me how stunned he was with surprise. This is a perfect illustration of what the verse means. Love is freedom. The words used by this good lady were beautiful. She was sincere in her own way. Nevertheless, they were as sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. In order to make words effective, they have to be felt as true. It is necessary to pour life, love, and feeling into our words and statements of truth. This girl did not have charity. Charity means love. Love is a cement that binds. It is a sense of oneness with the Father of all, the Almighty Power. Since love is a deep sense of our unity with God, with life, and all-powerful, we must in prayer become one with our ideal of perfection. In the case of a woman who is sick in the hospital, we must not see her sick or in pain. No, we must have charity or love and see her as a perfect being, an offspring of the infinite, clothed with all the qualities and attributes of God. Love frees, it opens prison doors, sets free the captives and them that are bound. It gives beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that we may become trees of righteousness. A simple treatment used by a son for his crippled mother in Rochester was as follows. He did not see her as a cripple, he had charity, which is the love of God, or good. This boy healed his belief about his mother through divine love. He decided that he would become as a little child, and shed all of his preconceived notions and beliefs about medicine, doctors' verdicts, mother's attitude, etc. Twice daily he prayed in a simple, direct, and spontaneous manner. Mother's life is God's life. It flows through her now as harmony, health, and peace. There is only the one life, and that is God. God is life. He would say to himself, how can this flow of life be impeded? He reasoned, in truth it cannot be. Mother is believing a lie, and she is experiencing the results of her false belief. The truth is, God walks and talks in her. She is healed, made whole and perfect now this instant. Every night before going to sleep, in his imagination, he would kiss his mother and feel her warm embrace. He would hear her say to him, Son, a miracle has happened. God has healed me and I walk. Isn't it wonderful? He would reply, Yes, mother, his name is wonderful. Then he would go off to sleep into the arms of the absolute lover. Truly this man spoke with the tongue of angels. The angel means a new attitude of mind. It is a new perception of God or good. The angel is the angle at which we look at God. The boy's angle was there in only one presence and one power, and it is now moving in his behalf. None shall stand his hand or say unto him, What doest thou? Love frees. Chapter 3. And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. 1 Corinthians 13:2. Love is that subtle emanation that streams forth from man, wherein he has a feeling of oneness with all life. Many people are gifted in countless ways, but often there is something lacking. For example, they fail to radiate the mood of peace, harmony, and love. When we see the growing corn, grass, trees, fruit, and buds on the branches, when we observe the sheep and cattle grazing in the valley, and when we hear the song and laughter of children at play, we should be reminded of love of God. Infinite providence is running the show. Thereby we can rest assured that love rules the world. Although men cannot see God and live, they look upon his cosmos and his works. If they seek him, they shall find him. If man seeks for love in the other, he will find it. If we look rightly at the world, we shall find the abundant life spoken of by Jesus. The world represents God thinking. Love is a symbol of the oneness with God, with life, and with all things. It is the urge of all entities to go back to the source. The journey back to God is the road back from relative love on this plane to the ultimate, or absolute love, or God. All the forms that we see in the world are an infinite variety of the thoughts of the one, the beautiful and the good. Love sustains and ensouls them all, for it is the universal solvent or solution which binds all things together in harmony, order, and symmetry. There is only beauty in the world. Every atom of space is indescribable beauty, because God is beauty. Moreover, every atom in space dances to the rhythm of the gods. The stars, the planets, and the earth on which we move are purely symbols of the bow in the sky portraying God's covenant with all men, whereby he sets forth order, precision, and proportion. The world and all things contained therein is the handwriting of God on the screen of space. He that hath an ear, let him hear, and he will become still and listen. He will hear the music of the spheres and understand the profundities of law. When he looks out upon the world, he will see and hear differently. Such a person will realize that all men are garments of God, which he wears as he moves through the illusion of time and space, and that all of us are on a journey of self-discovery. All of the stars, suns, moons, seas, mountains, and all things that we behold are symbols of still greater things. They are the archetypes of a transcendent perfection, or witness of truth, which are the same yesterday, today, and forever. We may write great works admired by all the worlds, yet their pages are empty, if we have not love in our hearts. Honor is not of man, it is of God. It is like the soldier in the recent war who won many honors for his valor and prowess in battle. His chest was covered with medals. Everyone thought he was most happy and proud. However, at one of the ceremonies in his honors, he confided to friends, "All this means nothing to me. All I want is the love of the girl who no longer wants me. Love her, and want to be loved by her." His heart was hungry. He knew instinctively and intuitively that pinning medals on him for killing other human beings was not the love of God. He must have felt that we cannot live until we love, and that love must have an object. Life is livingness and givingness. Love is the outward flow of life. This flow must be harmonious, joyous, rhythmical, and peaceful. This cosmic urge must be expressed in a positive, constructive manner. Man must be in tune with the infinite. He must find the thing he loves to do in life and do it. Then he will be happy. Such a man has a sense of freedom and joyous expectancy. He no longer watches the clock, but his joy is in the accomplishment and service. Now his work is not drudgery, it is a pleasure. A man recently chatted with the author aboard a plane. This man is considered a great prophet and an internationally known writer. Many of his prophecies have come true in recent years. He has great faith in himself and has made remarkable demonstrations, yet he openly confessed his antagonism and bitterness to members of a certain race. As you saw in the second verse of 1 Corinthians, 13th chapter, even though he had all these wonderful gifts, he did not have love. Therefore the quotation says, I am nothing. In him there is no Greek, no Jew, no bond, no free, no male or female. Love does not know any barrier of race or creed. Love is universal. It frees. It gives. It is the Spirit of God, or goodness, truth, and beauty. This man admitted he lacked this impersonal love, which is peace on earth and goodwill to all men. We must love everyone. We do not have to like them. The love spoken of is in this wise. We rejoice that all men are growing righteously. The peace of God fills their souls, and that they are being prospered in mind, body, and affairs. We are glad the law of God or good is working for them, through them, and around them. This is love, or that impersonal goodwill, which we should radiate to all beings. It is like a fire in the kitchen. The warmth or glow from the coals does not favor one side of the room. It does not show any favoritism. It gives its heat to all. Love has neither height nor depth. It neither comes nor goes. It fills all space. It is. The ancients called God love. There is not any true happiness apart from the practice of the presence of God. I begin to life joyously when I see sermons in stone, tongues in trees, songs in running brooks, and God in everything. Chapter 4. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. 1 Corinthians 13:13. Let us explain this verse by following a true story. A woman came to the author many years ago when he was lecturing at the Park Center Hotel in New York City and said to him, I work for the Red Cross every day. I give money to all charitable organizations and belong to the Sewing Club. I visit hospitals and conduct drives for veterans, etc., yet misfortune after misfortune comes to me. Look at my fingers. They are inflamed, and I can't take my rings off. The doctor calls it rheumatoid arthritis. Why? I love so much and give so much. Actually, this woman did not have love, so it profited her nothing. After talking with her for a little while, I discovered she wanted to be praised by the multitude. She wanted her picture in a paper. She craved the flattering remarks of her associates. She forgot the common caution, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Verily, they have their reward. This means that man will receive the praise of man. They will say, what a fine fellow he is, how generous he is, how selfish. This flattery satisfies the ego of the worldly-minded man. Ye have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. This woman's act, though well-intentioned and good, were not really of her heart. She did not do these things for the joy, love, and thrill of doing them to make others happy, joyous, and free. Her motives were not pure and holy. She forgot there is not any honor or glory of man. All honor and glory come from God. Let us always examine our motives. In the case of the woman cited, she was thinking in terms of lack and limitation. When she gave her gifts, she was looking forward to tragedy, pain, cyclones, and misfortunes of all kinds. This cannot be called divine love. Oftentimes, people will do something for another and then say, aren't you grateful? They are expecting something in return. If I am grateful to you, I am under an obligation to you. When we do something for another or give a love gift, we should not place the other under any obligation. And though I give my body to be burned. When this woman gave a gift or did some work for the Red Cross or any other charitable organization, it should have been done freely, gladly, and for the joy of giving. She should not expect anything in return. If she gave a gift and expected something in return, it would not be a gift. The gift of love does not have any strings attached to it. It is as free as the wind. A gift given in this manner, whether it is work, service, money, or thoughts, comes back 1,000-fold. It comes to the giver pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Let me cite another case I treated some years ago. A very possessive mother came to me complaining that she had scrubbed floors in order to send her daughters to a finishing school, where she could become a little lady like the others in the neighborhood. I worked my fingers to the bone. I pinched pennies and sold rings which my dead husband had given to me. What do you think this ungrateful daughter did? She ran off and married a young doctor, and they have gone to South America. She never even sent me a postcard. I am so mad I could choke her. I asked her what she had expected her daughter to do. Well, she said, after all I did for her, I expected her to come home and wait on me in my old age, get a job and support me. Or if she got married to a rich man, I would expect her to take me with her and to live with her. You see, my daughter needs me, and I love her so. My explanation of the truth healed this woman. She went off smiling with the radiance of the light limitless shining out through her eyes. I explained to her that if she really loved her daughter, she would rejoice in her new happiness. I requested that this mother should pray for her by knowing that love enfolds her, surrounds her, and permeates her every atom of her being. Moreover, that if she ever loved her daughter instead of feeling hurt, and instead of giving her body, her idea of her daughter to be burned, in other words, entertaining the idea of resentment, she should send love forth. The mood or feeling of love and peace for the daughter would automatically remove the feeling of resentment. Love casts out hate. Hate and love cannot dwell together. Perfect love casteth out fear. Hate is fear. This mother realized that love is freedom, and that if she really loved her child, she would free her in the arms of God, knowing that divine love goes before her daughter to make safe, instant, and perfect her way. She understood that the work she had done for the girl should not have been a labor of love, and that she should rejoice that she had made her happy. She rejoiced in seeing her daughter grow in radiating peace, health, and happiness. To love her daughter meant to lose her and let her go, knowing that God is her father, God is also her mother, and that God is all around her. The mother understood, and she was delighted in her daughter's freedom. She was happy because her daughter was happy. She wired her congratulatory message and prayed sincerely for her peace, security, and integrity. What is harmony? For the part is harmony in the world, because the whole is in the part, and the part is in the whole. In the case of this young woman, when love came on the scene, it was right, good, and true that she accepted it. This was the harmony of the part. Likewise, it was harmonious for the mother and right for everyone. But of its very nature, it could only bless and make others happier, instead of depriving the mother of anything. This realization of love and harmony for the good fortune of the daughter would bring manifold blessing to the mother. To love is to release. What you love, you release. What you hate, you bind. Mothers must be like the mother bird. When her young are ready to fly, she pushes them out of the nest, and they learn to fly by themselves. Mothers must give up their possessive attitudes towards daughters and sons. They must cease thinking that they know best. Parents must teach their children the truth of being. They must teach children how to pray successfully, scientifically, and how to be independent. Mothers must not expect their daughters to sacrifice their homes and children in order to stay with them and feel sorry for them. This attitude of mind on the part of a child and her parents has caused endless confusion and blighted the lives of countless thousands. This is the reason Jesus said, "Leave father, mother, brother, and sister, and follow me." Yes, the me is the truth. Truth is the way, the life, the quest, and the goal. Truth brings good tidings to the meek, binds the brokenhearted, and proclaims liberty to the captives. Mothers and fathers must never worry about their children. This is a mood of fear, lack, and limitation. If the children do not know the laws of life, they sense a vibration or feeling of the parents, and it has a despoiling effect. The blind lead the blind, and they both fall into the ditch. I was young, now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor the seed begging bread. This means that if parents live the truth, they will see their children as noble, dignified, Christ-like being. They should have the conviction that their children are growing righteously. According to their conviction, will it be done unto them. They must clothe their children in the garment of salvation and the robe of righteousness. Then their children will never beg bread, which means they will never do anything dishonor God or their parents. They will truly grow in the image and likeness of the mood or conviction held by their parents. For the parents clothe them with divine love. They realize the aura of God enfolded, encompassed, and fed them. Surely the children could reflect only love. What thou seest, that too become thou must. God if thou seest God, dust if thou seest dust. Having seen and felt love for their children, parents must reflect it by an inexorable, changeless law. Seek and ye shall find. That is, see God or love coming forth in your children. Chapter 5. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Recently a man told a little girl that her father, who had made the transition, had gone on a trip, and that she would see him again in the future. People criticized this man, yet he did the kind thing and made the girl happy. Moreover, what he said was true. Her father had made a journey in consciousness to the fourth dimension. Through love, the child will again see and talk with him. They will both play, as Donne says, in the symphony of the all creation. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Yes, love endures forever. It is indissoluble. Nothing breaks it up or severs it, because it is a quality or attribute of God. Love is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It is not changeable and variable. Love is, and all there is love. When we do the kind thing, it is always love in action. Let us ask ourselves, what is the kind thing to do or say? This is truth. Charity envieth not. The man who knows the laws of life never envies another, neither is he jealous, because he knows that he can go to the same fountain as the others did and claim all the good that he wants. If he believes, it shall be given to him. A man who understands this cannot be jealous. He knows that God is impersonal and no respecter of persons. Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye buy and eat. Yea, come buy wine and milk without money, without price. The only price we pay is belief, and belief does not cost anything. The qualities of mind in the other, or his riches, his wife, his home, or his estate, therefore are not to be coveted. You may also have any or all of these things by going to the same source as the other and ordering them. Concerning the works of my hand, command ye me. Your command is simply to appropriate the mood or possessing that which you desire, then rest in the silence, knowing that what you prayed for is a fact in the kingdom of reality. Walk the earth in the light of this assumption, and in the moment you think not, it will appear as a quality of mind or object in space as a home, a wife, etc. Vaunteth not itself. The sophisticated man, lacking knowledge of truth, parades before himself a whole procession of motives, which are not really true, in order to conceal from himself that he is what he does not wish to be. He is proud, opinionated, and arrogant. If he does a thing with an unworthy motive, he claims it as a good one, because it would shame him if he recognized how bad the motive was. We must expose these spurious motives to ourselves and get rid of our false pride, so that we can be proud of our own relationship with God, the only presence and the only power. Is not puffed up. We must get rid of the sense of our own importance, pride of rank, class distinction, or family tree. We must rid ourselves of false intellectual pride. The great man is always the humble man. The greatest doctor is usually gentle, kind, loving, and understanding. The really great mystic is the humble man who knows that all wisdom, power, and intelligence come from the one, the Father of all. When such a man says, "Our Father," he means it. He knows we have a common Father, and that we are all brothers and sisters. He also knows we are descended from the royal family, and that we have the greatest family tree in the world, namely, I am. The tree of life is in the midst of the gardens of God. This is the one, indivisible tree. All members of the human family have their being rooted in this eternal tree. We are fed by the sap that comes from the wisdom of the Father. It is the Christmas tree. We, the children, are gathered around to feast from the gifts, or manna, that fall from its branches. The meat that we eat is the realization of the almighty power. The bread is the manna, or divine ideas that flow through us. The wine is the inspiration from on high. The fruit is the joy of the answered prayer. We know that law waits on God and man. We are always sitting at the banquet table of God, and feast is always prepared. Chapter 6. Doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. Rejoice not in iniquity, but rejoice in the truth. 1 Corinthians 13:5-6. The one living in the consciousness of love always does that which conforms to the good of all. He contributes to the betterment of society, and never does anything that would disturb the harmony of the whole. His behavior is gentlemanly, courteous, and kind. His presence is soothing, comforting, and conducive to peace. Wherever such a man goes, he will always meet the white brother, regardless of race or creed. He loves people, realizing God indwells all man. So he is one with God of all. Others, regardless of the color of their skin, sense this and respond in kind. Seeketh not her own. If a man returns love to one that loves him, that is not enough. He must cease to be possessive in his love, and let it become universal, so that his love for all men becomes all-inclusive. Love is freedom and respect. If a man truly loves his wife, he will trust her and have perfect faith in her honesty and integrity. A husband must not behave unseemly because his wife had dinner with another man. Neither should she hesitate to tell her husband about it. He will not question her or make a scene. No, he behaves as he should. He remains poised and calm, knowing that what therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. This means their marriage was a spiritual union made in heaven. Therefore no man or woman or power can break it. This knowledge is immediately felt by the wife. She responds in kind. She must remain true to his conviction of her. What does a husband feel about his wife? Let him always see her as he first saw her. That is, let him always clothe her in the robe of glory and beauty, yea, the seamless robe. Let him say to his heart, "Thou art all fair, my love. There is no spot on thee." With such an attitude, she must reflect the Christ to him, because he has seen and felt the Christ in her. What thou seest, that thou beest. Let me tell you the story of a woman who behaved herself unseemly. She was married to a devoted husband, and she had 2 children. They never quarreled. One day a gossipy neighbor said that he had seen her husband with a strange woman twice in a restaurant, and that she thought he was running around. The wife became so excited she left her home, leaving a note with one of the children to give to her father. Filled with rage and jealousy, she ran off to Reno to get a divorce. She obtained a Reno decree, never listening to any explanation offered by the husband. Months later, she learned that the woman in question was her husband's sister, whom he was befriending. Love is not easily provoked. She did not have the understanding of God, which is also love. Thinketh no evil. If married people would cease suspecting each other, happiness would reign. Let us cite another instance. A boy and girl get married. They seem to be a perfect couple, yet in a few months they are separated and divorced. Why? This may be one of the reasons. The young wife might visit her husband's office and see a pretty girl there. Then one evening he may come home late. Instead of trusting him, she begins to suspect him. Silently she begins to fear that he is going to run around, and that he is not going to be faithful to her. She does not say anything to him, since neither of them understands the laws of life. What she continues to fear comes to pass. Her conviction about him is communicated to him. He feels it subjectively. He becomes restless, and does the things she was convinced he would do. She becomes frantic, goes home to her mother. The lawsuit begins. Love thinketh no evil. Love sees the Christ truth always. Love is faithful to the end. The end is always good, because God is good. I have a letter from a woman in London who had been married 20 years. Suddenly there was a flare-up. A break ensued between her and her husband. Before she realized it, they were on the verge of a divorce. People had told her that her husband was running around with other women. He was. She did not say anything, but this is what she did. She prayed that her husband be divinely guided in thought and action, and that only right action prevail. She loosed him and let him go, realizing that the love of God flowed through his thoughts, words, and deeds. She decreed that peace filled his soul, and that infinite spirit revealed to him the perfect way of life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. He gave up the other women and came back to her in love and peace. She was a wise woman, because she knew that love frees. His happiness was her happiness. She gave him an impersonal treatment, rejoicing that all good was his now. She did not tell God what to do, but she realized the truth about him. It was a perfect demonstration of the healing power of love. Love joined them together. How could anyone sever that love? They could not if it were real love, for real love is almighty and indivisible. Who can sever it? Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoice in the truth. The truth student or the Christian, the latter word means anyone who practices the principle of truth, never rejoices that a nation is vanquished. Never, under any circumstances, does he have a desire to get even or rejoice under the misfortune of others. Iniquity means unbalance, lack of firm balance or equilibrium. The truth student never listens to anyone that will not contribute to his good or the good of another. Some people, through gross ignorance, seem to rejoice in gossiping about others, attacking their character, backbiting, etc. To talk about and dwell upon the imperfections of another, whether true or false, is to attract limitation and loss to yourself. The law is, as you would that man should talk about you, speak you also about them in like manner. This is the rule of a free, happy life. The person who spreads spicy gossip is thinking it and feeling it. What is such a person attracting? It is easy to answer. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. To imagine evil of another is to lie. We could be like the little girl in the story. Once a thief came to murder a man, but the man's little daughter did not see the murder. She saw a nice man who might give her candy. She played with him and sang for him. He left with tears in his eyes, and he was healed. Love rejoices in the truth. Let us rejoice in the realization that all men are expressing the truth. The truth is, God indwells each man. Let us bear witness to that truth by knowing that those people who would criticize and condemn one another are now dramatizing, portraying and expressing love, peace, and harmony. Chapter 7. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never fails, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. 1 Corinthians 13:7-8. Love creates and gives birth to all forms. For example, when two forces such as hydrogen and oxygen meet, water forms. Love likewise is a union. It is an emotional attachment. Love is a cement that binds. Let us become one with our ideal by loving it. Then we will give birth to our desire. Truly love beareth all things. When we treat or pray, we must have love in our hearts, because we must accept as true that which our five senses deny. This is real love also. Love is the fulfilling of the law. When we have convinced of the truth which we affirm, there is no room for doubt. The man with love in his heart does not bear the so-called burdens of the world on his shoulders, because he knows that wisdom rules the world, and that infinite providence guides it on its own course. The man of understanding realizes that all men, beggar, thief, and holy man, shall at their appointed time come to see the transcendent glory which he is. No one is lost. There is no lost soul. God cannot lose himself, neither can he destroy himself. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. Hope springs eternal in the breast of the truth student, but this hope is an abiding faith in an omnipresent and ultimate good. The mental scientist endureth all things in this sense. He knows that whatever problem presents itself to him, God has the answer. He therefore casts his burden on the Christ within, which means upon the truth. That is, he does not take the problem to God, because infinite intelligence does not have any problem. He goes to God with the answer. Then, behold, God flows through his problem, and there's no problem. The sincere truth student is not weighed down by the problems and vexations of the day. He refuses to bear these burdens. Such a person knows there is a way out. His joy is in overcoming his problem. He knows that the so-called trials which beset him are his opportunities to discover the God power within. He tastes God and he finds him good. He has become acquainted with the one power. He walks along the highway of life smiling. He has a song in his heart. It is a song of the Lamb, victory. If the crossword puzzle was all figured out for man, and if he were asked just to fill in the blank spaces, life would be drab. No, the thrill of accomplishment comes in working out the problem. For instance, the engineer rejoices in building a bridge where others have failed. There is a great satisfaction in overcoming. We are here to prove our divinity, so we endure all things and experiences gladly, knowing that he who perseveres to the end shall be saved. This means that man, instead of attacking and fighting his problems, simply lets go, becomes still, and says to the Father within, "Now, Father, this is what I want. The right answer is mine now. Infinite intelligence has revealed it to me now. Thank you, Father." If a man will say this silently or audibly to himself, because prayer is basically man talking to his higher self, and say it knowingly and feelingly, the answer will come and bring peace with it. Man is here to discover the joy of living. He must awaken from his dream of limitation to claim his sonship. He can use the law of life two ways. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. When he gets tired of using the law of life negatively, in other words, when he is tired of being pushed around, he begins to ask questions: why, where, whence, and whither. His dissatisfaction leads to satisfaction. He deduces a law from all his experiences. The thrill is in discovery. The reader of this book would not give up his unpleasant experiences. I will wager each man is glad he has had them, even though they were unpleasant, because through them he found the light. Sweet are the uses of adversity, like a toad, ugly and venomous, yet wears a precious jewel in his head. Man's extremity is God's opportunity. We do not have to suffer, but we undergo pain and misery due to our ignorance. Emerson says that the only sin is ignorance, and the only punishment is the inevitable consequence. When man truly finds God, he becomes serene, poised, and balanced. He has found it to be in tune with the infinite. It's to discover that all his ways are pleasantness, and all his paths are peace. In this objective world, we are conscious of opposites, such as north and south, night and day, male and female, cold and heat, love and joy, peace and sorrow. How could we know what love was except we were able to shed a tear of sorrow? Opposites are necessary for our growth, so that all of us may experience the joy and significance of positives. The positive, affirmative attitude towards life or believing is a good thing, is what Quimby called Christ. Christ is the wisdom which Jesus, Moses, Buddha, and the illumined mystics found. This wisdom is the knowledge of God and the way he works. Knowing the law of life, we apply it scientifically, wisely, and judiciously to bless ourselves and others. We have found that the opposites are not irreconcilable. We can always go to the garden of God, the Holy of Holies within ourselves, and pray and believe that peace, health, harmony, and happiness are ours just for the asking. God is the gift and also the giver. Man is the receiver. Our prayer, therefore, is walking in the light of the assumption that our prayer is already answered. We know it exists in the kingdom of reality. If we wait yet a little while, it will appear in the screen of space. Love never faileth, for how can God fail? The predictions, statements, and idle talk of men fail, but the consciousness of love protects, guides, guards, and illumines men. The love referred to is the inner silent knowing, a movement of consciousness welling up from the heart. The consciousness of being one with your ideal will win. This is the mood it demonstrates. The mood of love or oneness with your ideal never faileth. This power or mental attitude is omnipotent, because it is the Spirit of God moving into objectivity. It is true that the prophecies of men fail, because they are many times based upon the evidence of the senses, race belief, doctors' verdicts, and scientific facts dependent upon objective analysis. However, to the subjective self of man, all things are possible. If he will not judge, therefore, according to appearances, prophecies of man, but only believe that the God power has fulfilled his request, and rest in that conviction, he will find that love, oneness with his idea, never faileth. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. A man who is in a hospital bed crying with pain is speaking in tongue or mood of limitation and lack. He does not know God or truth, because to know truth is to be free. Hence, this tongue or mood or lack must cease, and he must change his consciousness. It is not any use to pray to God, and at the same time believe that some other power can overturn, neutralize, or destroy the action of God. This form of prayer is useless. Moreover, it is a waste of energy. We must remember that it is our inner feeling or mood that will be manifested, regardless of all the statements of truth that we use. Therefore, our affirmations or statements of truth must be permeated with love, feeling, and conviction. With this mental attitude or state of consciousness, we pray believing, according to our belief will it be done unto us. The consciousness or feeling of being healed is the almighty power that heals. Let man close his eyes, think of God, then realize that all of the godlike qualities and attributes are within himself. His own consciousness or awareness is the almighty power that demonstrates and materializes. Let him now contemplate on the fact that he is healed and perfected. Let him rejoice that every tissue, muscle, bone, electron, and atom of his being is now conforming to the pattern on the mount. Let him realize that the Holy Spirit, which moves through him now, is the spirit of omnipotence, and that the spiritual man is now being revealed. As man continues to do this, he moves from fear and anxiety to a mood of love and peace. His fear is changed to the feeling of confidence in an almighty power which acts according to his feeling or belief. Then the tongue of man or limitation ceases, and the tongue of God, mood or love and peace, decrees triumphantly. Whether there be knowledge, it shall pass away. Yea, the wisdom of man is foolishness in the eyes of God. All the pioneers, artists, inventors, and scientists were at one time ridiculed by the world. They were considered dreamers and visionaries. The world said that radio, electric lights, telephones, etc. were impossible. These and many other inventions were looked upon as impossible or practical achievement. Yet the dreamers believed the unbelievable. They believed that the impossible was possible. They knew that love, a feeling of oneness or conviction with man's good or ideal, would win. Infinite intelligence revealed the way. Chapter 8. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. 1 Corinthians 13:9-10. In the first epistle of John 3:2 we read, Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. We are here to awaken to our divine perception. As we die to all of our false beliefs and race concepts, we will have purified our subconscious mind. Then the Christ, the illumined man, will appear as the anointed one. The conscious mind, Jesus, and the subconscious mind, Christ, will become one. They are united in perfect harmony. The two become one. The part is relinquished. The limited man is now dead, and the perfect man, the Christ, is revealed. We now see ourselves as sons of God in the bosom of the Father. We are awakened. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. 1 Corinthians 13:11. We must not be ruled by childish thoughts or by dead thoughts. Millions walk the earth in bondage to the belief and opinions accepted by them in their infancy or youth. Their childish beliefs in the boogeyman under the stairs, a devil with horns, or hell and damnation must be discarded. We must be governed by the idea that we are the sons of man and the sons of God, the truth. Our governing idea must be that we are sons of God. Therefore, we must have the same qualities, attributes, and capacities as the Father. Let us go forth and make ourselves equal with God, and we shall not feel it's robbery to do the works of God. He thought it not robbery to do the works of God. We must not identify ourselves in consciousness with childish things, such as fearing and believing in things and powers that do not exist. When a child becomes a man, he must cease transferring the power that is within himself to things outside himself. In other words, he must cease worshiping the false gods, such as sickness, disease, pain, and poverty, which are brought on by man's wrong thinking, fears, and false beliefs. He now knows the laws of life, and that he is a son of God who is entitled to all good things. So he goes forth claiming his sonship. Consequently, he finds that all of his ways are pleasantness, and all of his paths are peace. We must grow up in our love nature also. It would seem that we are very immature emotionally. We must cease to be vain, arrogant, and boastful. God is love, therefore love is good in all of its forms and modification. If we see fault in the husband or sister, it is not a part of love. Jealousy and resentment are counterfeit phases. Let us consider the following. A certain man objected that his wife expressed herself as a creative artist. She could create new, attractive designs for hats. She wanted to take a position in a nearby establishment. The opportunity presented itself, yet the husband was so possessive that he said to her, "No, your place is in the home. But there when I come back." They had no children. She was frustrated and unhappy because she did not want to go against his wishes. This man was ruled by a childish thought. He did not know what love was. His idea of love had failed to mature. Love is freedom. It does not deny the right of expression to others. If he really loved his wife, he would have daily encouraged her and rejoiced that she had found a measure of happiness in designing hats. If I truly love the other, I want to see the other happy and prosperous. There is that cosmic urge within us, constantly seeking to express itself at higher levels of consciousness. Man must never limit, circumscribe, or put chains on love and say, "Your attention is to me only. Never mind your artistic ability." This selfishness is based on fear of loss. Man loses what he will not let expand, grow, and unfold. This case ended in divorce court. The woman became a great artist and has contributed much to the world. She found her ideal husband through prayer. Of course, he encouraged her talent, and she expressed greater beauty than ever before. The sense of personal freedom held by this husband and wife portrays the real spiritual marriage, wherein each is wedded to God, good, and one with him in livingness and givingness. Wives and husbands should learn to free each other instead of binding each other. Then they would be truly grown up and have put away childish thoughts. The love of God in their thoughts, words, and deeds will guide them in all their ways. His name is inscribed in their hearts and written in their inward parts. The love of a woman for a man is a reciprocal mood in which the subjective nature of the woman is complemented by the objective nature of the man. She finds the image and likeness of her subjective desire in a man. Her subjective feeling realizes its objective fullness in a marriage made in heaven or spiritual consciousness. Let us broaden our horizon and enlarge the borders of our tent, so that gradually our love becomes a love what Jesus had. His love was not limited to his mother, father, or those around him. He loved all humanity. This is the universal love which includes the beggar and the holy man, yes, even the thief on the cross. We must realize that God is the absolute lover and the impartial, universal divine giver. He gives to all men, regardless of creed and color, that which they feel is true of themselves. He never questions them and says, "What are you going to do with the $1,000 you want?" God is the giver and the gift. Man is the receiver. Our understanding of God increases as we fail to see the parts and begin to see the underlying unity behind all things, a unity in diversity. Then love in action is a desire of diversity for unity. Our journey on this plane is a journey back to the One and the glory which we had with him before the world was. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering. When a man and a woman marry, it brings them up further into the scale of unity. Chapter 9. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I know even, also I am known. 1 Corinthians 13:12. We cannot see without eyes, or hear without ears, or apprehend without the power of thinking. The act of becoming the perfect man here and now would be impossible if the perfect ideal had not already been created within us. We see through a glass darkly now. We do not see this divine presence within us, which is absolute perfection, but we instinctively and intuitively sense something divine welling up within us. Nature provides signs which indicate future happenings. For instance, the dawn appears, and the shadows flee away. Consider the fledgling before it flies in the air. It flutters and shakes its wings. This is a promise of its power to fly. The same process takes place in man. He reads the story of Jesus, who awakened here on earth, claimed his oneness with God, translated his body, and went back to dwell in the bosom of the absolute Father. Men turn to God in prayer and adoration. Prayer is a reverent or mystic awe in which we contemplate our own I-amness. In this meditative mood, man contemplates his good and rejoices in the anticipation of the answered prayer. Then he may be said to feel joy before joy, to feel beauty before beauty, to feel happiness before happiness. The tree, for example, about to bear fruit, puts forth shoots, flowers, and leaves in anticipation. Observe the vine, a piece of God's handiwork, with its tendrils, suckers, leaves, and petals which are speaking to man their own language, and proclaiming their joy at the forthcoming fruit. Let us become illumined by the Holy Spirit. This will lead the way to the birth of the Savior, because as Mary, the subjective, is constantly being impregnated by Christ-like thoughts and ideals, the garden of God is freed from all weeds. Then comes forth the Jesus Christ state of consciousness. Each time we pray aright, our prayer is answered. As a result, we see God, or our good, face to face. When I see your face, I recognize you. Each time we turn to the truth and recognize it, it recognizes us. We become one with the truth, and we are free. Prayer can be likened to the story of the prodigal who returns to his father. Symbolically, this means the conscious mind realizing the godlike powers within its deeper self, which has the answer to all. The father did not condemn or criticize, but as the son turned to him, the father turned and kissed him. He does not berate him or ask him why he ran away from home. No, he is the absolute lover who gives all. He is no respecter of persons. If we complain about our lot, the answer is, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. The Scripture said, Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. We are told that no man can see God and love. Whoever dwells on virtue and beauty sees virtue and beauty, or sees God or good. The pure in heart see God every day. Peace is the power at the heart of God. With peace in our hearts we sit at the banquet table of the Lord, presided over by the God of love. God never forgets his children. When the children forget their divine origin and vainly search for their good elsewhere, they have a sense of separateness from God. They only need to return to find themselves in the changeless presence that always indwells them. The love of God illumines the darkness. Let us smile. This smile of love to another illumines his heart. All of us reflect the glory of God in some degree. When our thought is uplifted, we reflect his glory. When the subjective state of our thought is governed solely by the Holy Spirit, it reflects its reality in all that we say or do. But then I know even, as also I am known. The reader is known now as a son of God. Beloved, now are we the sons of God. As the birth of God takes place in us by dying daily to all the false beliefs of the race and anointing all of our thoughts with the Holy Spirit, we come into the light of the Spirit and realize that God is within us and the life of us all the time. And we go from glory to glory. We shall someday awaken and discover our inner self. This higher self is now hidden due to the darkness of our thought which covers it. As we wash the windows of our soul, light, sunshine, inspiration, and divine illumination will illumine us. Then we shall see spiritually. We can see only perfection, order, symmetry, and proportion. We will see divinity behind the form, and the truth behind the mask. Opposites will disappear, and we will see only the unity or oneness of all things. We shall see ourselves as we really are, namely, identities in the bosom of the Father, lights making up the one great light, or the silent brooding present, which is changeless and ageless, without beginning or end, older than night or day, younger than the babe newborn, brighter than light, darker than darkness, beyond all things and creatures, yet fixed in the heart of all of us. For love is of God, and every one that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. Therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. Much is forgiven him, because he hath loved much. All things are possible to the man who is full of the divine fire and radiating that subtle essence of love to all. His desires are fulfilled, and the gift of God is made. This gift is the more abundant life, a celestial love and abiding peace. We come close to the presence of the Ancient of Days, through love that dwells up in our hearts toward all men and our Father. Chapter 10. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. 1 Corinthians 13:13. Hope is the expectation of all good. The expectancy of the best is truly a great prayer. Faith is the substance of things hoped for the evidence of things not seen. Faith is your inner knowing or feeling or confidence or trust, containing within itself the mold of expression. Love is our union with our ideal. It is the fulfilling of the law. The law decrees that whatever we idealize or feel ourselves to be, the formless awareness within us takes its form according to our belief. This is accomplished through love, which is prayer, which means being filled with the feeling of being what we long to be. Loving our ideal and becoming one with it brings about that inner certitude or satisfaction that follows true prayer. Through divine love, a love for truth and the mysteries of life, we perceive intuitively great truth without any process of reasoning. As we begin to contemplate our unity with life, with God, and with the universe, we will become more and more aware of the divine presence. We must experience Holy Communion frequently. This can be accomplished by disciplining our five senses, stilling the body and mind, and realizing our communion with Him who is. Speak to Him thou, for He hears. Sometimes man is blinded by this light of illumination. This is the divine fire spoken of by the mystics, which illumines the whole house, or man's mind. In such a moment others present are dazzled by the radiance of the light limitless. The illumined, or partially illumined man has had glimpses of reality. He knows that man is immortal, and his individuality endures forever. He knows that each person is a manifestation of the one life. Whatever happens to one is impregnated and recorded in the universal subjectivity common to us all. The individual called John Jones is one of the many who makes up God, for God is the one in the many, and the streams of manyness are all flowing back to the oneness, where they sense this oneness with the original stream, the source. Having found the all, we think in terms of God. We are His co-workers in the grand symphony of all creation. We rejoice in the growth and unfoldment of all men. This mental attitude is an attribute of God called love, because what we possess is the possession of all. When I rejoice in the good fortune of my fellow man, good fortune comes to me, for love never faileth. This is a divine measure which is pressed down, shaken together, and running over. In the same way, when we criticize or injure another, we injure ourselves. Why should we therefore not love, since the love we give to others we really give unto ourselves? Our liberation and our freedom would follow. Man himself is the giver, the gift, and the receiver. Man's body is an idea in consciousness. Man's consciousness is called I am. The I am, for example, in Mary, Tom, or Jack, is the same I am that is God. In Him we live, move, and have our being. Let us therefore realize our essential unity. This is loving one another, or becoming one with each other in wisdom and understanding. Let us stop fighting shadows, the darkness of our mind, and let us realize that God is within. Let us turn to Him smilingly and say, Father, I have come home. As we become still, we will feel and sense the soft tread of the Ancient of Days, and He will welcome us with a kiss of love. In His presence, we will discover that His life is the life of all of our brothers and sisters in the cosmos. Contemplating this divine truth, we become every other creature, for they all say, I am in varying degrees. We have discovered that all other beings are extensions of ourself, the one self, our own I amness or life, or the reality of every creature. God is life, and His life is the reader's life. As long as God lives, the reader will live. God is that which was, is, and shall be. Therefore we live forever. We know that the planets are thoughts, the suns and moons are thoughts, and that our own consciousness is the reality which sustains them all. Temporarily in space are moving the dreams of the dreamers, the cosmos, and all things therein contained are thoughts of the thinker. We have touched them all. He is meditating, and we are His meditation. It is our own conscious meditating on the mysteries of itself. The student of truth, having had a glimpse of reality, is no longer full of fears and foreboding. He does not fear life, death, or anything in the past, present, or future. Love has cast out all fear. He throws off the old garments of pride, arrogance, tinsel of his creeds, dogmas, and superstition. He now knows the glory from on high. He feels and realizes that he dwells in eternity. His own awareness, which enables him to say, Father, moved upon the face of the waters and said, Let there be light. Such a man knows that following the desire of his own consciousness, the morning stars sang together, and the sons of God shouted for joy. Yes, man has played all roles. He has been everywhere and seen everything. Furthermore, the I am in man created everything. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? We are God walking the earth in a dream of limitation. But we have forgotten our divine origin, yet when we awaken we shall find that the whole world is a projection of the thought of our deep self. Only in truth is there divine freedom. Only in God is there power. We are dwelling in eternity now as immortal beings, in order that we may bring the love of God to all men. Let us rebuild our temple in the silence without sound of hammer or voice of workman. Let us enthrone in our mind a government of divine ideas mothered by the Holy Spirit. This will be a government of the wise. Our tomorrows are the reflections of our todays. Indeed, they are the image and likeness of today. God is the eternal now. Now is the day of salvation. Let us live lovingly today. Then the pulse beat of the Holy Mother that throbs in us today will animate ourselves and those around us tomorrow. The mood of love that emanates from us now will speak through the boys and girls of future generations. We shall one day read their words, which will be apples of gold and pictures of silver, to God which is our true self, that which is to be, which must be. Let us this day consecrate and dedicate our thoughts and feelings to God. Let us become clothed with immortality in the garments of love. The song of the Lamb now wells up in our hearts. The angels and the archangels join us in the celestial choir. Jesus, the great conductor, leads, and through love all of us are now playing in the divine orchestra. And yet another commandment I give unto you, love ye one another. Chapter 11. The Pharisees also fame unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them, Have ye not read that which he made them at the beginning, made them male and female, and said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. They say unto him, Why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement, and put her away? He saith unto him, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, Whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery, and whoso marrieth her, which is put away, doth commit adultery. His disciples say unto him, If the case of the man be so with his wife, it is not good to marry. But he said unto him, All men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. For there are some eunuchs, who were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Matthew 19:3-12. Have ye not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? This refers to the dual aspects of consciousness, the two phases or functions of mind, namely the conscious and the subconscious. The conscious is referred to as the male, the subconscious is the female aspect of creation. The conscious mind is personal and selective. The subconscious mind is impersonal and non-selective. The conscious mind has the power to impress ideas and concepts upon the subconscious mind through feeling. The subconscious mind accepts all ideas felt as true and gives form and expression to them in its own way, by ways ye know not of. Knowing this is true, the truth student or mental scientist is very careful of the thoughts he chooses. For when we dwell on a particular idea or concept of ourselves, we find our emotional nature beginning, stirred either positively or negatively. It is a law of life that any idea, whether it is good, bad, or indifferent, which is emotionalized becomes subjectified, and in due course objectified. When we realize this, we will become very careful of our moods and feelings. Our moods give birth to our children, or conditions, events, circumstances, etc. Children possess the qualities of the parents. We must be very careful, therefore, that the mother, the mood, or the feeling of our children is pure and holy. For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Yes, man must leave father and mother, which means that he must leave the old beliefs, superstitions, and rave thoughts. He must no longer have false gods, such as fear, doubt, worry, resentment, etc. He must not look to the world for peace, guidance, illumination, supply, or strength. But he must turn to the God within, which is a source of all supply, and whose bounty is ever present. His faith must not be in his father, mother, friend, or brother, but his faith and reliance must be on the indwelling Christ or Emmanuel. This is the God in us. It is his own I amness. Only then is his faith well founded, for he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Man likes to cling to his old creeds, dogmas, and doctrines for sentimental reasons. Though he has outgrown the old concept of things, he hesitates to throw them away for social, political, or family attachments, and consecrate himself solely to the truth of being. Such a man has a conflict in consciousness. He cannot have a full realization of the presence of God. His false pride causes him to refuse the truth which sets him free. Man shall cleave to his wife. This quotation means that man must be true to his ideal, his desired objective, by consciously claiming himself to be that which he longs to be and feeling the reality of his desire. Man must not permit himself to react negatively to suggestion of fear, lack, or doubt, for such suggestion, if entertained or believed, becomes conditions in his world. No, he remains faithful to his beloved, the ideal or desire. They twain shall become one flesh. In prayer, when man withdraws from the world and contemplates the joy and happiness that would be his on realizing his objective, He enters into a fixed psychological state. Now he has become one in consciousness, with his defined objective or ideal, and he is at peace. The two, man and his desire, have become one. His inner feeling of joy indicates that he has passed over from the former state to the present state of consciousness. Man's bride or wife is his concept of himself. She should be a bride of the Lord with a noble, dignified, Christ-like state of consciousness. Let us cleave to this state of consciousness and contrive to sustain it until we are married to it. As we grow from glory to glory, we will reach to Jesus Christ's state of consciousness. What God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. When man reaches the absolute conviction that his prayer is answered, this conviction is unshakable. God has joined them together, the two become one. The spiritual man knows that the subjective embodiment must come forth in the scope of spiritual creative activity. This spiritual issue is inevitable. They say unto him, Why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and put her away? Moses here refers to a state of consciousness whereby man subscribes to man-made laws, and he is schooled in unholy belief. The creeds and beliefs of the world are mostly determined by the flesh rather than the spirit. This worldly, materialistic-minded individual who is wedded to the past does not know that God is within him, and that his own unconditioned consciousness or awareness of life is God. Neither does he know that the solution to all of his problems is within him. His desire for peace, happiness, security, and integrity come from within himself. If he knew the law of life, he would accept these desires. Unconditioned consciousness or infinite intelligence would bring them to pass. Man, however, not knowing the law, rejects these desires and ideas that come to him as being impossible. He says, I am too old, I don't have the right connections, I haven't sufficient money, etc. He establishes thousands of reasons why he cannot realize the cherished desires of his heart. Therefore, he gives these ideas and aspirations that well up within him, a writing of divorcement, and puts them away. This rejection is due to his ignorance. He does not know there is a power within him which is capable of bringing all things to pass. And none shall stay its hand and say unto you, What doest thou? Moreover, asleep within man and merely waiting his recognition and claim are inspiration, divine guidance, and illumination. These two he puts away due to ignorance, and he seeks guidance from the world. So the Scripture said, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart, suffered you to put away your wives. This refers to the man whose concept of God is that of a tyrannical being living in the skies. He makes a god out of his own imagination. He says that he is a god of vengeance and caprice, a being who plays favorites, a sort of horrendous creature whom we can't depend upon, since he might at any moment send a cyclone, tornado, or earthquake. Man's concept of God hardens his heart when he awakens and finds out that the subjective self or life in himself is God. He leaves the old way of thinking. He is now beginning to learn of truth and come out from the maze of old theological concepts of existence. The exact opposite of man-made laws is most often true. Likewise, factual evidence is oftentimes false. Whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her, which is put away, doth commit adultery. This verse is easy to interpret if we will dispense with these outlandish ideas that God instituted marriage laws, and that we must adhere to the letter of them. God never instituted any marriage laws. All of the ceremonies and rituals that we have today are man-made, and they vary in every part of the world, obviously. God could not have these conflicting and varying ideas about marriage. In him there is no Greek, no Jew, no bond, no free, no male or female. In heaven there is no marriage or giving and taking in marriage. The idolatry spoken of in this verse means idolatry, the worship of false gods. For example, if a man gives power to any external condition, he is adulterating his thought. He is in effect implying that the God power in him does not have the power to overcome the circumstances or condition. In other words, he is becoming charged with fear. Fear is lack of faith in God. If a man conditions the realization of his desire on external conditions such as money, influences, etc., he is adulterating his thought. He is saying, I have to help God out. If he begins to wonder when, where, how, and through what source, he is also an adulterer. When we put away our wife, or our highest ideal, therefore, and marry or become one with fear, doubt, hate, a sense of failure or dependency, we commit adultery. And whosoever marrieth her, which is put away, doth commit adultery. Yes, if man begins to broadcast his prayer of supplication and beseeching to a God in space, he is postulating a God outside of himself. He has a sense of separateness. This belief in a God apart from man is false. Hence, it is an adulterated concept. He is never sure if God will hear the broadcast. He has no way of knowing. Such a man is begging God as if he were hard-hearted. He is cringing before him as though God were withholding. God is the gift and the giver. I am a gift unto you. Come ye to the waters and drink. Yea, come ye, buy wine and milk without money and without price. The only price for all divine gifts is belief. They do not cost anything. No one can make you believe something that you do not want to, for there are no conditions or specifications laid down. Canst thou believe? All things are possible to him that believeth. His disciples say unto him, If the case of the man be so with his wife, it is not good to marry. The disciples are our attitudes of mind or our 12 faculties. In most cases they are not disciplined, but they are governed by world beliefs. So the worldly man cannot understand that which he marries is a state of consciousness, or his own mental concept. He finds it is difficult to believe that his wife is that which he is conscious of being, his dominant mental attitude. He finds it hard to comprehend that the conscious state in which he dwells is his wife or mother or his children. Their children are his body, affairs, finances, health, etc. Yet man, looking out into the world, says, It is not good to marry. There is so much divorce, separation, and unhappiness. He looks upon marriage as a game of chance, not knowing that he attracted to himself a wife, conditioned exactly upon his inner mood or conviction. True marriage finds its bliss and happiness in an accord of ideals, a harmony, and purity of purpose. Let us stop blaming God for the abuses that go on under the name of marriage. The name to many people is like sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. It is to them a mockery of the word. Let us awake and discover the true, impersonal, universal love. Then marriage will be a happy state or union, blessed by the fire of divine love. Love seeketh not her own. Love is, and all there is love. Love is not the knot that binds man and woman, thought and feeling, in the endless cord of life, binding past and future and the eternal present. All that was and all that shall be now is, for in love's eyes time is not. Love is the way of life. Take heed that ye despise not God in human form. He may be at your side in the person of your beloved one, through the working of God's grace. The desire for freedom is oftentimes a desire to marry another. For example, a lady gets a divorce. She is bitter and resentful towards her former husband. If she remarries without forgiving, what does she find? The second is worse than the first. She tries a third, a fourth, and a fifth time. Each is worse than the preceding one. All the while she does not know that her inner mood of resentment caused her to attract similar types of men based upon the laws of attraction. The cure is to give herself a mood of love and peace for the mood of resentment. Then she is forgiven, or given for herself. She is given the mood of love for the mood of hate. She is at peace. Living in the mood of resentment over supposed wrongs committed by a former husband caused her to attract lack and limitation, because she was living and moving in the attitude of lack. Her ideas of love and marriage have to change as she seeks to find true harmony. She must lift love to a spiritual basis. Let us not limit love, bind it or circumscribe it. Love, freedom, respect are one, and the one is three. If any one of them is absent, there is no love present. The three are synonymous. But he said unto them, All men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. All men cannot see this truth. They believe in chance, coincidence, accidents, good luck, and bad luck. They cannot receive the saying, All is law and all is love. There is only law, and there cannot be chance, coincidence, or bad luck in the world ruled by law. An unhappy marriage or divorce is a perfect outpicturing of a given state of consciousness. It is the external manifestation of the discord in the man and his wife. It is good and very good, therefore. It is a perfect working of a law which never changes or plays favorites. We see a part of the process and condemn it, but if we could see spiritually, we would see the perfect ending. All men shall see the transcendent glory which I am. When we learn that the law is really one of freedom and cooperate with it, we find it is a law of love. For there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Eunuchs are our desires, concepts, or ideals, which are asleep or dead within us. We are eunuchs when we fail to animate and realize our God-given desires. We are here to radiate peace, love, and happiness. In other words, as sons of God, we are here to express God in thought, word, and deed. Our actions must be godlike. We must begin to live the truth, and let our light so shine before men that they will see our good work. By their fruits ye shall be known. Are our thoughts godlike? Millions of people are eunuchs as they live in the world and its problems. They are building treasures on earth, where the moth and rust doth consume, and thieves break through and steal. We are eunuchs when we let our fears and foolish beliefs prevent us from creating spirituality. We fail to partake of the mystic or holy communion with the Father and shed the radiance of the light limitless all around us. For there are some eunuchs which were so born for their mothers' wombs. This means millions follow the old theological pattern of hell and damnation, race mind beliefs, prejudice, and opinions. They are slaves to conditions, traditions, and race thought. They fail to create spirituality. Consequently, they are subject to collective or mass thought. Come out from among them, and be ye separate. And there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men. We listen to the negative suggestions of others. Thereby, we neutralize our desire or probability of attainment. For instance, a doctor may say, "You will die in 6 months from heart disease." We accept, believe, and prepare to die in 6 months. We fulfill his verdict, because according to our belief it is done unto us. And there be eunuchs, which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. This is the man abiding in the pure, illumined spiritual consciousness. He is constantly in holy communion with the Father within. He wears the seamless robe, the robe of glory. It is the garment of God which the mystic wears as he moves inward towards the real. It is the pilgrimage within to the Holy of Holies. No one may enter except he wears the wedding garment. Many are cast out, because they have holes, seams, and ragged edges in their garments. When we don white gloves and aprons and appear before the great white throne, wearing the badge of innocence and purity, the truth knows us, because we know it. We inhale the incense always burning there. This precious perfume of his inmost essence illumines our minds and bodies, and we awake whole, complete, and perfect. Our healing is instantaneous. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. He that is open-minded and receptive will realize that this whole drama takes place in his own consciousness. Then such a person receives or perceives the truth. Anyone who looks upon this parable as so many rules and regulations laid down by a man called Jesus is wallowing in the mire of beliefs and opinions of the world. He is worshiping the letter of the law. The letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. In prayer, when man contemplates the joy of having or being that which he desires to be or to have, he is performing the spiritual marriage act. Man at peace in the state of mental receptivity may be likened to the wife or womb. It is this phase of mind which receives impressions. That which man feels himself to be during prayer is the groom, for it is a name or nature he assumes. Therefore, it leaves its impregnation on his objective consciousness, so he dies to what he is, as he assumes the name and nature of the impregnation. The joy of the answered prayer, plus the inner satisfaction that follows the appropriation of man's desire, is the proof of his marriage. Chapter 12. Let us see these great truths in this new light. The writer has talked to many people in various parts of this country who think it is a great sin to dissolve their marriage, because the Bible says, "What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder." Yet many of these people with whom I have talked live and have lived in hate for many years. This is not a marriage, but it is a mockery and rank hypocrisy. Surely common sense dictates that because a man said a few words, "I now pronounce you man and wife," that such a ceremony was not the meaning of, "What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder." These words mean man's spiritual conviction and his absolute faith in his prayer. I and my Father are one. Man, realizing his oneness with the Father within, begins to do the works of God. No power, agency, or man can break him asunder from his spiritual oneness with God. How often is marriage really a spiritual union? How often is it merely a legal ceremony against which the parties to the contract begin to chafe in a few weeks? Man marries a state of consciousness when there is a true spiritual union between two people. God hath joined. No one in all the world could put it asunder, even if he tried his utmost to do so. To obviate making the wrong choice, man should pray scientifically when he desires a wife. There is no religion without science, and no science without religion. These are two arcs of a circle that meet and become one. This is a scientific way he should go about selecting a wife. Let him close his eyes, be still, and imagine that he is now married to a noble, dignified, loyal, spiritual, wonderful woman. Let him state the qualities or attributes that he admires in a woman, and feel that he is now married to such a woman. Then he should go off to sleep knowing that infinite intelligence will irresistibly attract to him the right woman. In such cases, they will immediately recognize each other. It will be mutual. There will be no confusion. They will blend spiritually, physically, and mentally. Praying is in this way. He will not be deceived by the evidence of his senses, which usually are deceptive. When a man plans to get married, he must never judge according to appearances. Let him judge righteous judgment. A man once said to the author that a woman he was going with for 3 years refused to marry him, and that he was going to commit suicide if he could not have her. After being taught to pray scientifically for a wife, this man met a waitress in a hotel where he was staying, fell in love with her, and married her. They are supremely happy. What about the woman without whom he could not live? In the interim, it was revealed to him through friends that she had already been married 6 times and never had taken the trouble to get a divorce. She was also an ex-convict. She had been convicted of several crimes. While she was keeping company with him, she was living with another man. When we pray aright, it does not bring grief or pain to anyone else. Some people think they have the right to break up the homes of others. They say, "That's the man I want." They are perfectly willing to break up the home to gain their point. It is true they may have succeeded, but what kind of bargain do they have? They have impregnated themselves with limitations. The result is dissatisfaction and unhappiness in many instances. What has happened to the golden rule? Where is it? Have they applied it? As ye would that man should do unto you, do you even so to them in like manner. This commandment gives the whole law of a happy and successful life. In selfishness and greed, this is forgotten. What does a woman want the family of a man whom she weaned away from his wife to think about her? How does she want them to feel about her? She wants his wife and family to think of her as a noble, gentle, dignified lady who is Christ-like. Let her apply this principle and see if she really still desires to wreck their home. We must stop working in a finite way for an absolute state. Marriages are made in heaven. In other words, they are made in harmony and peace. Peace is the power at the heart of God. God is peace. When Jacob prayed for a wife, he saw angels ascending and descending. The angels ascending and descending represent the qualities and attributes that man admires in a woman. As within, so without. Having felt the reality of the state, it becomes subjectified, and whatever is subjectively accepted is made manifest. Therefore he meets the image and likeness of his inner conviction. If man strikes a note on a grand piano, all notes in harmony with its strike and response. They may be higher or lower, but they are similar, so man attracts to himself those people with qualities based on his moods or concepts of himself. It is affinity or attraction depending upon the chord I strike. Man may strike a discord, but he does not take all the discords out in order to make a harmony. When he disciplines his mind in prayer, he can play a divine harmony. Suppose a man cheats on his wife. If he had love and respect for his wife, he would not want any other woman. When a man has found his true spiritual ideal in marriage, he has no desire for any other woman. Love is a oneness. It is not a duality or a multiplicity. A man who runs around with many women, which are the many adulterous moods within him, is marrying many concepts such as frustration, resentment, cynicism, etc. When man has found love with his mate, he has found fullness of life. The reader may say, why did some men previously have many wives? The reason was that at one time the earth was depopulated, and the earthly fathers, not knowing anything better, suggested this method. Today we are more spiritually awakened and know that the earth is populated enough. If a man cheats on his wife, therefore, he is frustrated and never really has had love or a feeling of oneness. He has a profound inferiority complex and is striking that tone. What is he meeting? He is meeting himself. In other words, he has attracted his inner mood or concept of himself. Inevitably, the woman he meets are vacillating, neurotic, and confused. He is marrying these many concepts. He is seeing and hearing his own inner vibrations. The woman in the case are just as frustrated and unstable as a man. Birds of a feather flock together, or like begets like. Now let us take the case of a woman who is running around with a married man. Such a woman has been unable to demonstrate a husband or a boyfriend. She gets a pseudo-satisfaction or false thrill in stealing another woman's husband. She too has an inferiority complex and is unstable. She talks of the many proposals she has had because she yearns for them. A man who knows the laws of life will always see his wife as he first saw her. In his thought and feeling, she will always be clothed with the garment of salvation and the robe of righteousness. Then she will always be to him what he believes her to be. We are not living with people so much as we are living with our concepts of them. If a man never loses faith in his wife, she will fulfill his concept of her. If she becomes dejected, tired, and worried, and he becomes one with her in feeling, they both fall in a ditch. If he can reject this mood, and if he knows and feels that she is healed, wonderful, and perfect, no matter how despondent or gloomy she may become, he lifts her out of it. Man demotes himself by feeling his lack. His fear is transmitted to his wife. She reacts in kind. She cannot see him in the way she formerly did, as he has not the same feeling about himself. She can see him only in the way he sees himself. Likewise, he can only see her in the way she sees herself. If a man feels himself to be dignified, he commands respects and get it. A man who has the predominant mood of success and happiness knits all the members of the household together. He influences them and dominates them mentally. When he dies, the members of the family frequently fight among themselves. He was a cementing influence. He felt harmony and peace in the household. Your dominant conviction makes others seize what you see. Jesus displayed this when he said, "Our friend Lazarus sleepeth." Jesus realized the truth and saw life there. He caused the so-called dead man to vibrate. Then they all saw Lazarus alive. The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. We are asleep to God. Friction between husband and wife can be solved by prayer. Let the wife see the Christ in her husband. Let her see him as he ought to be, namely happy, radiant, and peaceful. Let her hear him in a meditative state. Let her see how wonderful and kind she is and how happy he is with her. If she is faithful to this treatment, he will be transformed and peace will be restored. In some cases, of course, there never was a real marriage. Because a man and woman have a marriage license and live in a home, it does not follow that there is a real home. Perhaps it is a place of discord and hate. When a child is present and the parents do not know the law of life, it is better to break up such a union than to have the mood of hate stifle the minds of the children. Many times a child's life and mind are dwarfed by the mood of their parents, which results in neurosis, crime, etc. It is far better for a boy to live with one parent who loves him than it is for him to live with two who hate each other and fight all the time. Men ask, should I get a divorce? This is an individual problem. It cannot be generalized. In some cases, divorce is not the solution. No more so than marriage is the solution for a lonely man. Divorce may be right for one person and wrong for another. There is no more condemnation of them than there are in Christ Jesus. Where there is no consciousness of guilt, there is no guilt. A divorced woman may be far more noble and Christ-like than many of her unmarried sisters who are living a lie. Rather than face the truth, such a married life is a sham and a farce, though they manage to keep up appearances. They are afraid of what the neighbors will say. Some are afraid that it would be bad for John's business. Others stay married for political reasons. That is, of course, in making a mockery of marriage. Marriage on the physical plane is symbolic of the spiritual, esoteric union of two souls seeking their way back to the heart of reality, which is love, and God is love. To say that a divorced person is under divine condemnation is a mockery and a sham. It shows a complete lack of understanding. In many cases, it is the decent, honorable thing to do. In some cases, where a couple find they are hopelessly incompatible, spiritually and mentally, let them do as a friend of the author's did recently. He said to his wife, "Goodbye and God bless you." She replied, "Goodbye and God bless you, Harry." They both meant it. They were blessed and there were absolutely no guilt because they had no consciousness of guilt. Man forgives himself. There is no one else to forgive him. Hath no man condemned thee? Neither do I condemn thee. We can divorce each other, yet love one another. Love is a fulfillment of the law. Love is an impersonal law. This love is an impersonal goodwill. You rejoice that the law of God or good is working for the other and through him, and that the peace of God is in his home, heart, and affairs. Anyone can do this. This is God's love. Love gives, it frees, it is the Spirit of God. Love is the key that opens the treasures of heaven. The contemplation of divine ideals, the study of the mysteries of life, a common purpose, plan, and personal freedom bring about that mystic marriage, the wedded bliss, the holy union where the two should become one. Each is wedded to God. Let us remember who we are, sons of God on a journey of self-discovery. The journey we take is the pilgrimage within to the Holy of Holies. The God we seek is the subliminal essence or the perfumed presence of our own I amness. Had I not come, they would not have known sin. Our sin is our failure to realize our desire and live a full, happy life. To live the life, let us sing the song of the Lamb. I am Christ. Feel it, believe it, act it, for its word must become flesh. Catherine Mansfield in her journal said, "A sudden idea of the relationship between lovers. We are neither male or female. We are a compound of both. I chose the male who will develop and expand the male in me. He chooses me to expand the feminine in him. Being made whole by love, serve ye one another." Chapter 13, Selecting Your Divine Companion. And he lighted up a certain place and tarried there all night, because the sun was set. And he took off the stones of that place, and he put them for his pillows, and lay down in the place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. The name Jacob means supplanter. You are Jacob when you know how to pray. The one who knows, for example, that when fear strikes, that the mood of faith and confidence in God or in all things good will overcome the fear and restore peace is Jacob. Jacob also means illumined reason, or the person who understands how to pray scientifically. Notice how Jacob prayed in the above quotation. If you are seeking a husband or wife, we are going to ask you to pray in the same way. The text says, he lighteth upon a certain place, and tarried there all night. He took on the stones of that place, and put them there for his pillows, and lay down to sleep. The inner meaning of this biblical quotation tells you that you should judge not according to experience or sense evidence, but you close your eyes, become still, and take one of the stones which represents a deep inner conviction that what you are praying for already is. Your place is with God, meaning you are going to claim your companion within, in the silence of your own soul. The ladder, which reaches to heaven, represents the scientific steps of prayer, namely recognition of God's presence, acceptance of your ideal, and a deep conviction in the reality of the wish fulfilled. The angels of God ascending and descending on the ladder represent certain qualities and attributes which you wish the man you marry to possess. This is the perfect formula for the marriage made in heaven. Never think of any particular man, but quietly relax the body and mind. Sit still. Contemplate the presence of God. Then realize that what you marry is a state of consciousness. Say quietly and lovingly to yourself, I now unite with these qualities and attributes. The man I attract and marry will be spiritual, loyal, talented, faithful, prosperous, and happy. I contemplate these qualities now. I evoke the spirit of them. I feel lifted up and inspired, angels ascending. I now go into the deep of sleep, feeling and knowing that these qualities and characteristics upon which I have meditated will be etched in my subconscious mind, the angels descending. I know this. I believe it. I accept it. I go to sleep now feeling that it is done. And Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows and set it up for a pillar and poured oil upon the top of it. This will happen to you after successfully praying for your divine companion. Like Jacob, you will wake up in the morning and pour oil upon the stone, meaning that you will know in your heart your prayer has been answered. Oil represents the oil of joy. The stone, which is used for a pillar, means a fixed state of consciousness. You are now fixed in the belief that what you prayed for is a fact of consciousness, because when you awaken you were at peace. Yes, you experienced, like Jacob, the joy of the answered prayer. A great number of men and women in our Bible classes have applied this biblical formula. They have attracted ideal companions and are blessed. Remember, God joins a man and woman together in matrimony. You must realize that no one can sanctify a marriage, neither can they validate it, except in a confirmatory sense. This biblical formula reveals to you that in order for a marriage to be real, it must first be spiritual. It must be of the heart. The heart is where God dwells. If both of your hearts are moved by love, sincerity, and honesty, then that is God joining both of you together. Truly, it is the marriage made in heaven. You know and feel that the action of your heart is love, and God is love. God is not present in all marriages. Perhaps there were ulterior motives in the union. If a man marries the woman for money, for position, or to satisfy his ego, that marriage is false. It is a lie. If a woman marries a man for security, wealth, position, a thrill, or to get even with someone, such a marriage is not of God, for God or the truth is not present. Such marriages are not real. Many elderly people may marry for companionship. They are sincere and see the God in each other. Their honesty and sincerity is born of love. They respect each other and love each other, and this is the marriage made in heaven, even though the fires of passion and the creative urge are long since gone. Remember that honesty, respect, and integrity are also of the heart. The heart is where the Holy One lives. When there is a real, true heavenly marriage, a union of hearts, minds, and bodies, there can be no divorce. Neither do they seek divorce. For it is a spiritual union. It is a union of two hearts. Each is married to God. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. Jesus is the new sayings, is reported to have answered the query as to when the kingdom of heaven will come by the words, when there shall no longer be male or female, that is, in a divided, undisciplined state of consciousness. In the Gospel of the Holy 12, Jesus says, Verily I say unto you, in God there is neither male nor female, and yet both are one. And God is the two in one. He is she, and she is he. The Elohim, our God, is perfect, infinite, and one. My divine companion, I am now attracting someone who conforms to my ideal. He does not want to make me over. I do not want to make him over. I love his ideals. He loves my ideals. He is free, happy, joyous, and prosperous. He is spiritually minded. He loves God and the way God works. I love, cherish, and admire him. He loves, cherishes, and cares for me. I have these qualities to offer to any man. I am honest, sincere, loving, and kind. I practice the presence of God. I have wonderful gifts to offer him. They are of God, namely peace, goodwill, a joyous heart, and a healthy body. He offers me the same. It is mutual. I now demand and know that the man I marry must measure up in my ideal. The man I meet according to the laws of mind will be a reflection of my own thought and feeling. I consciously and joyfully desire the companionship of God all day and night. This God present now manifests through some man, and I am in complete accord with him spiritually, mentally, and physically. He brings gifts to me of love, happiness, devotion, and loyalty. I bear him the same gifts. I have a deep, abiding desire to make his life full and happy. God directs my life in his own way. The man I attract is sent from God. What I am seeking is seeking me. The man I attract belongs to love, health, and harmony. I open my mind now, and I accept this gift from heaven. Thank you, Father. End of chapter, end of book. This audio presentation of Love is Freedom by Reverend Joseph Murphy has been brought to you by audioenlightenment.com and has been recorded for the exclusive use of Audio Enlightenment members only. If you have received this audio from any website other than our own, please visit our website. Let us know at your convenience. This audio presentation of The Magic of Faith by Joseph Murphy is brought to you by audioenlightenment.com. Copyright 2012, all rights reserved. Chapter 1, The Song of Triumph. Verse. Tell me, O thou whom my soul loveth, where thou feedest, where thou makest thy flock to rest at noon. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair, thou hast dove's eyes. He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand doth embrace me. My beloved spake, and said unto me, Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, though winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing of birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. My beloved is mine, and I am his. He feedeth among the lilies until the day break, and the shadows fleet away. It is inconceivable that any anthology could be written wherein the Song of Solomon would not be included. It is really one of the most inspired parts of the Bible. The Song of Solomon reveals God as a great lover. It is ecstatic and thrilling. In order to lead the triumphant life, you must be moved by love. You can go wild in the joy of being actually drunk with the Spirit. In other words, by singing the song of God, you become God, intoxicated and fired with divine enthusiasm, thereby expressing more and more the divine love and joy every day. You sing the song of God with a mood of triumph when you subjectively feel that you are that which your five senses tell you are not. You are then the God intoxicated and seized with a divine frenzy, a sort of mad joy. Haven't you at times seen a person bubbling over with enthusiasm, intoxicated with joy? That person is singing the song of God at that moment. In thy presence is fullness of joy. At thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore. When you sing a song, you are expressing your whole nature. Your mind and body enter into that song. When your heart is full of love and goodwill and you are radiating peace, you are truly singing God's song. It is the song of the jubilant soul. The real you is a spiritual, eternal, perfect being. You are a living expression of God now. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. When you pray, it is a romance with God or your good. Your desire, when realized, brings you joy and peace. In order to realize the desire of your heart, which is depicted in the Song of Solomon as your beloved, you must woo it. Let that desire of yours captivate, hold, and thrill you. Let it fire your imagination. You will always move in the direction of the desire which dominates your mind. The majority of students of psychology know that the Song of Solomon is a beautiful description of the wonderful romance of the conscious and subconscious mind, or Solomon and Sheba. Tell me, O thou whom my soul loveth, where thou feedest. You realize desire is he whom your soul loveth. You are asked, where thou feedest. In other words, what are you mentally dwelling upon? The flock represents your thoughts, ideas, opinions, and beliefs. You are to feast on nothing but the joy of the answered prayer. If you are saying to yourself, I can't, it is too late now. I am too old and I don't know the right people. In other words, if you are mentally feeding on all the reasons why you cannot do something or be what you want to be, you are not making thy flock to rest at noon. At noon the sun casts no shadow. Likewise, when you pray, you are not to permit any shadow of fear or doubt to cross your path or deflect you from your goal or aim in life. The world of confusion shall be rejected, and you shall mentally eat of or meditate on the reality of your desire. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes. The dove is a symbol of God's inner peace. Once I talked to an alcoholic who said, "Don't say anything about this God stuff to me. I don't want God. I want a healing." This man was deeply resentful toward a former wife who had remarried. Moreover, he was full of grudges against several people. He needed the dove's eyes, which means he needed to see the truth, which would give him peace of mind. I asked him, "Will you pray with me now? All I ask is that you be sincere. If you are, you will experience inner peace, which passeth all understanding." He relaxed his body, and I said to him, "Imagine you are talking to the invisible presence within you, the almighty power which created the cosmos. It can do all things. Say thank you for this inner peace. Say it over and over again." After 10 minutes in silent meditation, he was blinded by an interior light. It seemed to come from the floor where he was. The whole room was flooded with light. He exclaimed, "All I see is light. What's wrong?" Then he relaxed into sleep in my office, and his face did truly shine as the sun. He awakened in about 15 minutes and was completely at peace, saying, "God truly is. God is." This man had found his beloved. It had dove's eyes. As you fall asleep at night, tell your desire how fair it is and how wonderful you would be in realizing it. Begin to fall in love with your ideal. Praise it, exalt it. Arise, my love. Feel that you are what you want to be. Go to sleep in the consciousness of being or doing what you long to do. I told a man in one of the islands one time to sleep on the idea of success. He was selling magazine subscriptions. He became a great success by following this procedure. I suggested that he think of success prior to sleep, that is, what success meant to him. What he would do if he were successful. I told him to use his imagination. Then, as he was about to go to sleep, fall in love with the idea of success this way. Repeat the word success over and over again. He should get into the mood of success, then fall off asleep in the arms of the everlasting lover. Your lover, your divine presence, will bring to pass whatever you accept as true. The conditions, experiences, and events of your life are called children of your mind. He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. The banquet house is your own mind, where you entertain the idea or desire of your heart. I will illustrate at this point how to entertain in this banquet house of your own mind. A young girl having a special talent to sing was having great difficulty in getting anything to do in the motion picture field, television, or radio. She had been turned down so often she feared she was getting a rejection complex. She heard me state over one of our radio programs that whatever the mind the man could imagine and feel is true, he could realize. She wrote that down and came to one of our classes and began to practice entering into the banquet house by quieting the wheels of her mind, relaxing the body by simply talking to it, and telling it to relax. It has to obey you. In that quiet, relaxed, peaceful state, with her attention completely focused on an imaginary movie contract in her hand, she felt the reality of the joy and wonder of it all. She was now in the banquet house, and the banner over her was love. Love is an emotional attachment. She was definitely mentally attached to this contract. He calleth things that are not seen as though they were, and the unseen becomes seen. The visible world comes out of the invisible. She caused the contract to become a reality by becoming emotionally attached to the imaginary picture of a contract in her mental banquet house. She knew that what she imagined and believed must come to pass in a three-dimensional world. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand doth embrace me. The left hand is your deep, subjective feeling. The right hand is your disciplined imagination. As you begin to imagine and feel the reality of your desire, you are joining the right and left hands together in a divine embrace. Then a union of the idea and feeling takes place. Another way of saying this is, there is an agreement of the conscious and subconscious mind, which denotes the answered prayer. You know when there is no longer any argument or doubt in your conscious or subconscious mind, your prayer is answered, because the two have agreed as touching upon it, and it is so. My beloved spake and said unto me, Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. Is not that what your goal, aim, ambition, or desire is saying to you? For instance, the idea of perfect health is now beckoning to you and saying, Rise up and come away from the belief in sickness, limitation, pain, and aches to health, harmony, and peace of mind. I had a long talk with a man in England who had trouble with his leg. He had been confined to his home for 9 months and was unable to lean on his leg or walk. The first thing I did was to ask him what he would do if he were healed. He said I would again play polo, swim, golf, climb the Alps, which I used to do every year. That was the answer I was seeking. I told him in the simplest way how to achieve the perfect use of his leg again. The first thing was to imagine he was doing the things he would do. I painted an imaginary picture for him. For 15 or 20 minutes, 3 times a day, he sat in his study and imagined he was playing polo. He assumed the mental mood of actually performing the role of a polo player. He became the actor. An actor participates in the role. Not careful that he did not see himself playing polo, that would be an illusion. He felt himself playing polo. He actually did it by living the drama in his mind or banquet house. At noon he would quiet the mind, still the body, and feel his alpine clothes on him. He would feel and imagine he was climbing the Alps. He would feel the cold air on his face and hear the voice of his old associates. He lived the drama and felt the naturalness and tangibility of the rock. At night prior to sleep, before going into the arms of his beloved, his deeper self, he would play a game of golf. He would hold the club, touch the ball with his hands, put it in place and tee off. He would swing his clubs and delight in watching where the ball went. When he was in the mood of playing a good game, he would go off to sleep feeling very satisfied and happy about his experience. Within 2 months, this man's leg was healed. He did all the things he imagined he would do. The idea of climbing the Alps, plus the desire to play polo again, said to this man, "Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away." From your belief in a physical handicap, that is what he did. The law of the subconscious is one of compulsion. When you subjectively feel you are swimming, for example, when you feel the chill of the water and the naturalness of your various swimming strokes, you will sooner or later be compelled to swim. Whatever the handicap, whether fear or physical condition, you will do what you subjectively felt you were doing. Your desire, dream, ambition, goal, or aim is your savior. It is walking down the corridor of your mind saying to you, "Arise, my love, and come away, and enjoy the good and glorious things of life." No matter what the problem is or its magnitude, you have really nothing to do but convince yourself of the truth which you are affirming. As quickly as you succeed in convincing yourself of the reality of your desire, results will automatically follow. Your subconscious mind will faithfully reproduce what you impregnated within it. The Bible says, "Choose you this day whom you will serve." You have the freedom to choose the tone, feeling, or mood you enter into. The manifestation of your feeling or conviction is a secret of your lover or subconscious mind. Your external actions are therefore determined by your subconscious beliefs and impressions. Your thought and feeling determine your destiny. The knowledge of the truth is saying to you now, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The winter represents the cold state when the seeds are frozen in the bosom of the earth and nothing is growing. The winter and all the seasons are in your mind. Are your desires, dreams, visions, and aims in life frozen within you due to fear, worry, or false beliefs? You can resurrect them now by turning away from appearances and entering into a banquet house of God within you and saying to yourself, "I can be what I want to be. All I have to do is impress my subconscious mind with my desire for health, wealth, companionship, or true place, and it will express that state with which I have impressed upon it." The winter is now over for you. The rain is gone also. Your mind may have been flooded with negative thoughts, causing the mood of despondency, dejection, and melancholy. This is what a flood or avalanche of negative thoughts, false beliefs, and erroneous opinions will do. Now you know that all you do is fill your mind with the truth of God, which have come down to you from time immemorial. As you do this, you will crowd out of your mind everything unlike them. The winter and the floods are over for you when regularly and systematically you fill your mind with the concept of peace, happiness, love, and goodwill. You can do this by reading one of the Psalms, such as the 23rd or 91st, and feeling the truth of everything you say. Or you can read aloud a good meditation of the real truth of God. As you do this, these truths go in through the eye and the ear. They release a tremendous therapeutic vibration, which courses through your entire body and mind. These curative, healing, soothing vibrations destroy, neutralize, and obliterate all the negative, fearful, diseased thoughts which caused all the trouble in your life. Their embodiment must then disappear. This is prayer. Do it often enough until it becomes a habit. Prayer should also be a habit also. Do everything from the standpoint of the one God and His love. For instance, when you shop, pray before purchasing. Say, "God guides me in all my purchases." Say quietly to the sales lady or salesman, "God is prospering him." Whatever you do, do it with love and goodwill. Pour out love, peace, and goodwill to all. Claim frequently that God's love and transcendent beauty flow through all my thoughts, words, and action. Make it a habit of this. Fill your mind with the eternal verities. Then you will see that. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of the singing of birds has come. You will begin to flower. Yes, you will begin to blossom forth. The earth means your body, environment, social life, and all things necessary on this objective plane. The flowers you witness will be the birth of God in your mind. The flowers of God's guidance will watch over you and lead you to green pastures and still waters. The flowers of God's love will fill your heart. Then when you see discord anywhere, you will see that the love of God operate in all His creations as you realize it. You will see love come forth and flower in the other. When you go into a home and you see confusion, quarreling, and strife, you will realize within yourself that the peace of God reigns supreme in the minds and hearts of all those in this house. You will see the flower of peace made manifest and expressed. Where you see financial lack and limitation, you will realize the infinite abundance and wealth of God forever flowing, filling up all the empty vessels and leaving a divine surplus. As you do this, you will live in the garden of God where only orchids and all beautiful flowers grow, for only God's ideas circulate in your mind. As you go to sleep every night, you will clothe yourself with a garment of love, peace, and joy. From now on, you always go to sleep feeling that you are now what you long to be. Your last concept as you fall asleep is etched on your deeper mind. You shall resurrect it. Always take into the banquet house of your lover a noble, Christ-like concept of yourself. Your lover will always give you what you conceive and believe is true. Anything you can conceive, your lover can give conception. Love gives birth to all things. Your tomorrows are determined by your concept of yourself as you fall asleep in the arms of your lover or your ideal. The time of the singing of birds is at hand for you when you see singing that old song of lack. You have listened to people sing this kind of song. It is like an old gramophone record. I am so lonesome. Things never went right for me. I never had a chance. I have been cruelly treated. I have been operated on 3 times. You should hear about all the money I've lost. Yes, then they tell about the fear of the lonely road, plus their likes, dislikes, pet peeves, and hates. Imbued with God's love, you will no longer sing that song again. You will sing the new song, for God's ideas and truth will sing in you. Then you will speak in a new tongue, which means the mood of peace, joy, goodwill, and love. You no longer react to people and conditions like you did. The song of God is now heard. Now when someone says something mean or nasty to you, you will immediately transform it by realizing God's peace fills your soul. You will consume it with the fire of right thoughts. The birds will truly sing in your mind and heart as you do. You are happy, you are bubbling over with enthusiasm, and you are looking forward with a joyous expectancy to all good things. Wherever you go, you carry peace with you. All those who come within your orbit are blessed by your inner radiance. You begin to see sermons in stones, tongues in trees, songs in running brooks, and God in everything. The voice of the turtle is now heard in the land. Tennyson said, "Speak to him thou, for he hears. Spirit with spirit shall meet. Closer is he than breathing, and nearer than hands and feet." The voice of the turtle dove is a voice of peace, the voice of intuition and of God's inner guidance. You can hear it by lowly listening. For instance, one time as a boy I was lost in the woods. I sat down under a tree and remembered a prayer which starts, "Our Father, He will show us the way. Let us be quiet and He will lead us." I quietly repeated, "Father, lead us." A wave of peace came over me, which I can still recall. The voice of the turtle dove became real. The turtle dove is intuition, which means being taught from within. An overpowering feeling came over to me to go in a certain direction, as if I were being pushed ahead. 2 of the boys came with me, the others did not. We were led out of that thick jungle as if by an unseen hand. Great musicians have listened and heard the music within. They wrote down what they heard inwardly. In meditation, Lincoln listened to the principle of liberty. Beethoven heard the principle of harmony. If you are intensely interested in the principle of mathematics, you are loving it. As you love it, it will reveal all its secrets to you. Jesus heard the voice of the turtle dove when he said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." How wonderful you will feel as you drink in these words and fill your mind with their therapeutic potency. Job heard the voice of the turtle when he said, "Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace." You can hear the voice of the turtle by turning to the infinite intelligence within you, saying, "Father, this is what I want. Then state specifically and clearly the thing you desire. You are now turning your desire over to the God wisdom within you, which knows all, sees all, and has the know-how of accomplishment. You always know whether you have actually turned your request over or not. If you are at peace about it, you have turned it over. If anxious and worried, you have not subjectified your prayer. You do not fully trust the God wisdom within. If you want guidance, claim infinite intelligence is guiding you now. It will differentiate itself as right action for you. You will know you have received the answer, for the dove of peace will whisper in your ear, "Peace, be still." You will know the divine answer, for you will be at peace and your decision will be all right. A girl recently was wondering whether to accept a position in New York for considerably more money or remain in Los Angeles in her present position. At night as she went to sleep, she asked herself this question: what would be my reaction if I had made the right decision now? The answer came to her: I would feel wonderful. I would feel happy having made the right decision. Then she said, I will act as though I have made the right decision. And she began to say, "Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful?" over and over again as a lullaby, and lulled herself to sleep in the feeling, "It is wonderful." She had a dream that night, and a voice in her dream said, "Stand still, stand still." She awakened immediately and knew, of course, that that was the voice of the turtle dove, the voice of intuition. The fourth dimensional self within her can be seen ahead. It knows and sees all. It can read the minds of the owners of the business in the East. She remained in her present position. Subsequent events proved the truth of her inner voice. The Eastern concern went into bankruptcy. I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My beloved is mine, and I am his. He feedeth among the lilies. The lilies represent the poppies which grow in the East. To see the poppy fields sway in the breeze is a very beautiful sight. Here the inspired biblical writer is telling you to have a romance with God. As you turn to the God presence, it turns to you. You experience the mystic marriage, the wedded bliss, when you fall madly in love with truth for truth's sake. Then you become full of the new vine, the new interpretation of life. The lilies symbolize beauty, order, symmetry, and proportion. As you feed or feast on the great truth that God is indescribable beauty, boundless love, absolute bliss, absolute harmony, and infinite peace, you are truly feeding among the lilies. When you claim that what is true of God is true of you, miracles will happen in your life. By realizing and knowing these qualities and attributes of God are being expressed through you, and that you are a channel for the divine, every atom of your being begins to dance to the rhythm of the eternal God. Beauty, order, harmony, and peace appear in your mind, body, and business world as you feed among the lilies. You feel your oneness with God, life and God's infinite riches. You are married to your beloved, for you are now married to God. You are a bride of the Lord, I am. From this moment forward, you will bring forth children of your beloved. They will bear the image and likeness of their father and mother. The father is God's idea. The mother is the emotionalizing of the idea and its subjective embodiment. From the union of idea and feeling come forth your health, abundance, happiness, and inner peace. Sit down and feed among the lilies by realizing that every night of the year when you go to sleep, you go before the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and the Prince of Peace. Be sure you are dressed properly as you enter into his holy presence. If you are going before the president, you would put on your best clothes. The clothes you wear as you enter into the heaven of your own mind every night represents the mood or tone you wear. Be sure it is always the wedding garment of love, peace, and goodwill to all. Be absolutely sure that you can say, "Behold, thou art fair." There must be no resentment, ill will, condemnation of self or others, and no criticism of any person. God's love must really fill your heart for all men everywhere. You must sincerely wish for everyone what you wish for yourself. Then you can say to your mood or feeling, "Behold, thou art fair." And when ye stand praying, forgive, if ye have aught against any. My beloved is mine. All that God is yours, for God is within you. All you can possibly desire is already yours. You need no help from the outside to feed among the lilies. When you go to sleep tonight, forgive everyone, and imagine and feel your desires fulfilled. Become absolutely and completely indifferent to all thought of failure, because you now know the law. As you accept the end, you have, as Troward so beautifully said, willed the means to the realization of the end. As you are about to enter sleep, galvanize yourself into the feeling or being of having your desire. Your mental acceptance of your feeling as you go to sleep is the request you make of your beloved. Then she looks at your request, or conviction in the subconscious mind, and being the absolute lover, she must give you what you asked. You feed among the lilies until the day breaks and the shadows flee away. The shadows are fear, doubt, worry, anxiety, and all the reasons why you cannot do something. The shadows of our five senses and race belief hover over the minds of all as we pray. When you pray, accept as true what you reason and five senses deny and reject. Remain faithful to your idea by being full of faith every step of the way. When your consciousness is fully qualified with the acceptance of your desire, all the fear will go away. Trust in the reality of your ideal or desire until you are filled full of feeling of being it. Then the day will break and all shadows will flee away. Yes, the answer to your prayer will come and light up the heavens of your mind, bringing you peace. No matter what the problem is, how acute, dark, or hopeless things seem to be, turn now to God and say, "How is it in God and heaven?" The answer will softly steal over your mind like the dew from heaven. All is peace, joy, bliss, perfection, wholeness, harmony, and beauty. Then reject the evidence of your senses and feed among the lilies of God in heaven, such as peace, harmony, joy, and perfection. Realize what is true of God must be true of you and your surrounding. Continue in this abiding trust and faith in God until the day breaks and the shadows flee away. End of chapter. Chapter 2. The Practice of the Presence of God. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. Psalm 139:7. This 139th Psalm is one of the most beautiful Psalms in the Bible. It is a matchless, priceless gem of truth. The language of this psalm is unsurpassed for beauty and elegance. David's marvelous conception of the omnipresence of God was found in this passage. The religion outlined in the Bible as a practice of the presence of God. To understand and to intelligently practice this truth, you will find in the way to health, harmony, peace, and spiritual progress. The practice of the presence is powerful beyond imagination. Let us not overlook it because of its utter simplicity. The first step is to realize that God is the only power. The next thing to become aware of is that all things, no matter what they are, represent God in manifestation. The whole world is God in infinite differentiation, as God never repeats himself. This is the whole story and the greatest of all truth. It is really the all-inclusive, all-encompassing truth. I know many students who sit down for 5 or 10 minutes every day and meditate on the fact that God is the only presence and the only power. They let their thoughts dwell on this profound truth. They look at it from all angles. Then they begin to think that every person they meet is an expression of God, that in fact everything they see is God made manifest. It is God dramatizing himself for the joy of expressing himself. And as they do this, they find their whole world changing. They experience better health, outer conditions improve, and they are possessed of a new vitality and energy. Your whole world will change as you really begin to see God in everything and in everyone. For thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. And thou shalt know, thou tabernacle shall be in peace. This means that the man who begins to see God everywhere, and who follows and practices the good, will not be afraid of anything. As a matter of fact, the whole world will be his friend, and everything will extend the offer to help, whether animate or what the world calls inanimate. The only way to magnify the presence of God in the eyes of others is to radiate at all times the sunlight of God's love. Love God or truth, and you will be under divine compulsion for good. You cannot go wrong. You will find that you will never make any real mistake or wrong choice. Love all things good, or of the truth, is really the touch of Midas. In a building of the superstructure depends upon the foundation. Let your foundation be God and him alone. You are always practicing the presence of God when you activate your mind with true ideas which heal and strengthen you. Your mind needs constant cleansing, disciplining, and direction. By practicing the presence of God, you are constantly cleansing your mind. This is prayer. Think all day long from the standpoint of the one God about every person and every situation you meet. Pray at work by realizing God is your partner, and God is in action through all your associates. Pray driving your car by realizing the vehicle is God's idea, moving from point to point freely, joyously, and lovingly. Pray when you go into a store by realizing God directs your purchase, that God is prospering the clerk who waits on you, and that the store is being governed and directed by God's wisdom. Let prayer be the orderly, right way of doing everything. Practice the golden rule in all your transactions. Then you are writing God's law in your heart. It is essential for you to get the right concept and understanding of God. Have you meditated, or have you asked yourself what God is? Your concept of God molds, fashions, and shapes your whole future. Your real belief about God is of supreme importance. It is done unto you as you believe. If you say and believe God is the only presence, the only power, infinitely good, perfect, boundless love, and limitless life, your whole life will be transformed. If you say, "Oh, I do not know what I think of God. My thoughts are confused and muddled," confusion will reign in your life. It does not really matter whether you call God reality, infinite intelligence, being, life, Allah, or Brahma. The real name of God, as so far as you are concerned, is your concept or your belief about God. A man said to me one time, "I believe in God, and that is all that matters." I asked him, "But tell me, what sort of God do you really believe in?" He said, "I believe in the laws of nature." That was his idea of God, and he cannot transcend his belief. He is subject to that belief, thereby limiting his inner powers. He had no idea that God was his own life, that he could contact this present within his thought, and that he could be guided, and that he could heal his body by prayer. He was bound by his limited belief about God. Many have said to me that God is some kind of man in disguise, a sort of glorified man. Others say and believe that there are three persons in God. You will always manifest the results of your belief. If you believe that God is some sort of a tyrannical, inscrutable being living in the sky, ready to judge and punish you for your mistakes and violators of man-made laws and religious taboos, you are bound by that belief, and you cause pain, misery, guilt complexes, and so forth to follow. This is why Quimby said, "Man is belief expressed." Your concept of God enters into all departments of your life. It is bound to have its effect upon you. God is life, and life seeks to express itself as love, light, truth, and beauty. Life cannot wish death, sickness, or disease. To say that life wishes death would be a violation of its own nature. Life cannot have a tendency toward limitation of any kind. Life is a oneness, a wholeness, a unity, and it seeks to express that unity in the formed universe. In order to practice the presence, you must do the will of God. What does this mean? The will of God must always be the nature of God. You can rest assured the will of God must always be something wonderful and glorious. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor of the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. If your desire, idea, or intention is constructive, it will bless others. And if it is in keeping with the universal principle of harmony, your will or desire is God's will. Your desire for wealth, true place, abundance, security, and better living conditions conforms to the will or tendency of life or God. Life is forever seeking to express itself through you alone at higher levels. Enthrone in your mind the concept that God is the only presence, the only power, and that God is infinitely good and perfect. Think of some of God's qualities and attributes, such as boundless love, infinite intelligence, indescribable beauty, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. Believe these truths about God and your whole life will change. You will begin to express more and more godlike qualities every day. Believe that God is all life, all love, all truth, all beauty. Accept it in the same way as you accept the sun in the heavens each morning. Then you will find a great sense of peace and goodwill stealing over your mind and heart. Do you believe in a vengeful, capricious, anthropomorphic deity who sends sickness, trials, and tribulations to you? Watch the effect of such a belief. If you do, you will be like the man who said to me one time, "God sent this arthritis to me for a good purpose, and I suppose I must just bear it." This is superstition. Such an attitude of mind has no foundation. He had arthritis for 15 years and he could not overcome it. When this man with arthritis got a new concept of God and he learned to forgive those whom he deeply resented, by realizing the love of God was dissolving in his mind and body everything unlike itself, he was healed, even though it took some months. This man's concept of God worked out and made itself manifest in his body according to his belief. It is not your theoretical belief about God that manifests itself, but it is your real, deep, subconscious belief. There are people who forget to practice the presence when a lawsuit or verdict goes against them. Even though the judge rendered a verdict which seems unjust to you, continue to believe that it is God in action, and that there is a divine harmonious solution for all concerned. The matter will come right in due season. You cannot lose. You can only win by practicing the presence. If you believe that God is a man in the sky, you must experience the result of such a concept. Consequently, you experience confusion and trouble, just the same as if some human being with all his whims were running the world. God is pure spirit, infinite mind, and infinite intelligence. The Bible calls the name of God I Am, meaning pure, unconditioned being. No one can, of course, define God, for God is infinite, but there are certain truths which the illumined of all ages have perceived as true of God, and that is why the Bible said, "I am that I am." What is I am? It is your true being, your real self. Nobody can say I am for you. That is the presence of God in you, and your real identity. Whatever you affix to I am and believe, you become. Always claim, I am strong, powerful, radiant, happy, joyous, illumined, and inspired. Then you are truly practicing the presence, for all these qualities are true of God. When you say, I am weak, I am inferior, I am no good, you are denying God in the midst of you and lying about him. Brother Lawrence of the 17th century was a monk. He was a saintly man and wholly devoted to God. The book entitled The Practice of the Presence of God reveals a great humility, simplicity, and mystic touch with God. To do the will of God was, as he said, his whole business. Brother Lawrence practiced the presence when washing the dishes or scrubbing the floor. His attitude was that it was all God's work. His consciousness and awareness of the divine presence was no less when employed in the kitchen than when he was before the altar. The way to God was to Brother Lawrence through the heart and through love. His superiors marveled at the man who, though only educated to a point of reading and writing, could express himself with such beauty and profound wisdom. It was the voice of God within him that prompted all his saying. This is how he daily practiced God's holy presence. He said in effect, I have put myself in your keeping. It is your business I am about, and so everything will be all right. How beautiful, how simple, yet how soul-stirring is his prayer. He said that only sorrow he could ever experience would be the loss of the sense of God's presence, but he never feared that, being wholly aware of God's love and absolute goodness. In his early life he feared he would be damned. This torture of his mind persisted for 4 years. Then he saw the whole cause of his negativity was lack of faith in God. Seeing that, he was freed and entered into the life of continual joy. Brother Lawrence schooled himself, whether cooking, baking, or washing pans in the kitchen, to pause, if only for a moment, to think of God in the center of his being, to be conscious of his presence, and to keep a hidden meeting within him. Due to his inner illumination, when he enjoyed the raptures of the Spirit, he emerged into a realm of profound peace. Begin now to practice the presence by keeping your eyes on God, or all things good, by seeing God in everyone you meet, and by constantly affirming, it is God in action in all departments of my life. Calmly trust God's holy presence to lead you to green pastures and still waters. Love the truth with a love that leaves no room for care or doubt. No matter what your work may be, as you go to your business, say, God walks and talks in me. I rely on God's guidance and wisdom completely. Give thanks for the perfect day. Do as Brother Lawrence suggests. Whenever your attention wanders away on fear or doubt, bring it back to the contemplation of his holy presence. To secure and know the life of peace and joy, school yourself daily to have an intimate, loving, familiar, humble conversation with God all day long. In this way you will draw upon God's grace abundantly. You shall become illumined by an inner light, and you will behold the inner vision of God, your beloved. Case histories. Case history number 1. This interesting case from my files may bless many of you. This man invested a large sum of money in a certain organization. He had a very high regard for the 2 men who were active partners in this business. They appropriated the money which he gave them for themselves, and a little later they went into bankruptcy. He was very bitter and resentful, because he had practically put his life saving into his venture. He was also ill due to the hatred in his heart. I explained to this man the resentment is never justified, and that many people make investments in land, stocks, bonds, etc., and have lost their money, but that it is absurd to blame the broker or the real estate man because we erred in judgment. In a great measure, this man's resentment was caused by a feeling of guilt for his own mistake, which he refused to admit. He was blaming the other man by an act of resentment for his own shortcoming and failure. He prayed his way through it by a practice of his presence in his way. I now radiate love and goodwill to these 2 men. I humbly, sincerely, and honestly wish for them God's guidance, inner peace, and divine love. I wish for each one of them prosperity, success, and a richness of life. It is God in action in all departments of their life. I mean this, I am sincere. My mind is now clear, clean, poised, serene, expectant of happiness. God is guiding me in all ways. Nobody can take happiness, peace, or wealth away from me. I am one with God, and my business is God's business. I am now minding my own business. The money I gave these men comes back to me in peace and harmony. He prayed like this night and morning, and during the day, when hateful thoughts would come, he would say, God is with me now. In 2 weeks, he was at peace with the world. All the resentful thoughts were burned up in his deeper mind. They were withered away by realizing God in action in his own life, and the life of those whom he said wronged him. A relative died in the interim, and most interesting thing happened. He was bequeathed the exact amount he lost in that business venture. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways. Case history number 2. A young girl in our recent Bible class practiced the presence in this way. She said a man was constantly annoying her by calling her on the phone and meeting her at her place of employment. One day she decided to do something about it. She relaxed, quieted the wheels of her mind, focused all her attention on the God present within by realizing it was there. She quietly said to herself, God never made a man like that. Only the God in him is expressed to me. God is all, and only God can be expressed through him. This man completely disappeared out of her life. She never saw him again. She said it was as if the earth had swallowed him up. Undoubtedly he was healed and blessed by her prayer. She had a healing also. Prayer also prospers. It is like the gentle rain from heaven. It is twice blessed. It blesses him that gives and him that receives. She saw this man in a new light. Then he felt this change within him. He was healed and ceased to annoy her. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. End of lesson. Chapter 3. Realizing your desire. Desire is the power behind all action. We would not lift our hand or walk unless we had a desire or urge to move. Desire is a gift of God, as Browning said. "'Tis thou, God, who giveth, 'tis I who receive." It is man who receives not a few of the gifts of life, but all of them. Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is mine. All things whatsoever the Father hath are mine. Our Father holds within himself all things we require, such as peace, harmony, abundance, guidance, joy, and infinite expression. We must grow unceasingly. We can never exhaust the infinite storehouse. Let us realize a few simple truths. It is due to desire that we jump out of the way of an oncoming bus. The reason we do this is because we have a basic desire to preserve our life. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. For example, the farmer plants seed due to his desire to attain food for himself and his family. Man builds airplanes due to his desire to collapse time and space. Similar illustrations are found throughout our whole course of life. Desire pushes man. It is the goad of action. It is behind all progress. Desire is really the cosmic urge in all of us, impelling us to go forward, onward, upward, and Godward. Desire is the angel of God, the messenger of the divine, saying to each one of us, "Come on up higher." Desire is behind all progress. It is the push of life. We find that we follow the desire which captivates and holds our attention. All of us find ourselves moving in the direction of the idea which dominates our mind for the time being. Desire is an angel of God, telling us of something which, if accepted by us, will make our life fuller and happier. The greater the expected benefit for the desire, the stronger is our desire. Where there is no expected benefit, gain, or advancement accruing, there is no desire. Consequently, no action is found. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, saith the Lord. Our ideal, murmuring in our hearts, is the Alpha. In order that it become the Omega, we must enter into the feeling that it is ours now and walk the earth knowing it is so. Failure to realize our desire over a long period of time results in frustration and unhappiness. I have talked to many men in different parts of the country. Their frequent complaint is that for years they have tried in vain to attain a certain ideal or position in life, and they have failed miserably. They did not know that the desire to be, to do, and to have was the still small voice speaking to them, and all that was necessary was for them to say, "Yes, Father, I accept and believe it." Then walk the earth knowing that it is done. By illustration, take the seed which draws all that it requires, such as water, chemicals, etc., from the ground, and when it comes above the ground, it extracts from the rays of sun, through a process of photosynthesis, all the light and other elements necessary to form a complex substance called chlorophyll. It also has the intelligence within it to make the most complex chemical compounds in its bark and leaves beyond the ken of man to discover. In like manner, when man becomes as a seed and knows that all things necessary for the unfoldment of his ideal will be given to him, he will attract to himself whatsoever things he needs for the complete realization of his dreams. For instance, friends, introduction, ideas, etc. All men, women, and children that help us on the road of life are servants of the law which we set in operation within us. My ways are not your ways. This infinite intelligence, which we set in motion when we pray aright, inspires in others the actions, words, and movements necessary to aid us in the grand unfoldment of our ideal or in the great drama of our life. It is foolish to blame or accuse others, as we must realize that others are witnesses, telling us who we are. As within, so without. If there is discord within, there will be discord without. If we dwell in a mood of lack and limitation, others must come and testify to our lack. I knew a woman in London one time, and on 3 occasions her purse was snatched from her by a thief in the Tube in London. She was a wealthy woman. The explanation for this was that she was living in a fear of having her purse stolen. This was really an expectancy. What I fear most has come upon me. The mood, feeling, or conviction in which we walk determines the movements and action of others toward us. In the 11th chapter of Mark it says, "All things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall receive them." The word whatsoever in the above quotation means anything you wish. It is all-inclusive. There are no specific conditions set forth. You do not have to be a churchgoer, belong to a certain creed, or make any sacrifice. I rejoice not in the sacrifice of men, not by power, not by might, but by the Spirit, saith the Lord. For what purpose is the multitude of thy sacrifices? I am full of the blood of rams and the fat of beasts. I rejoice not in the blood of rams or the goats. The only requisite is to believe that you have it now, or that you are the being you long to be. Believe means to live in the state of being. This means a complete mental acceptance where there is no longer any doubt or question in your mind. This is a state of consciousness called a conviction. All other procedures are cited by Isaiah as foolishness and superstition. The only prerequisite is to believe that you have received. Then comes the manifestation of your ideal. We grow through desire. It is desire that pushes us forward, for it is the cosmic urge. Let us realize that we are all channels of the divine, individualizations of God consciousness. The desire that lingers in your heart, that murmurs quietly, perhaps it has been there for months, making itself known to you, is the voice of God speaking to you, telling you to come on up higher, to arise and shine. Maybe you have looked around you and said to yourself, "What chance have I? Mary can, but I can't. Perhaps someday I. It is just wishful thinking, etc." How many such expressions come to your mind? Remember, it is your five senses and worldly reasons arguing with your higher mind. We must remember that in prayer we always shut out the evidence of our senses and reason, plus everything that contradicts or denies what we truly want. Then, as Jesus commands, we go within, shut the door, and pray to our Father in secret. That Father who seeth in secret will reward thee openly. Let us now proceed to enter into this secret place and perform the spiritual, creative act in our own mind. Sit down in an armchair, relax and let go. Practice the Nancy School technique by getting into a drowsy meditative state, a state of effortless effort, where an effort is reduced to a minimum. For example, if you want to be a singer on the radio, imagine you are before a microphone. The microphone is now in front of you, and you see the imaginary audience. You are the actor. Act as though I am and I will be. You feel yourself in the situation. You are singing now in your imagination. Enter into the joy of it. Feel the thrill of accomplishment. Continue to do this in your imagination until it begins to feel natural for you. Then go off to sleep. If you have succeeded in planting your desire in your subconscious mind, you will feel a great sense of peace and satisfaction when you awaken. An interesting thing will have happened. You will have no further desire to pray about it because it is fixed in consciousness. The reason for this is that the creative act has been finished and you are at rest. After true prayer, when you have reached an inner conviction, there steals over you a sense of inner peace, calm, and certitude, which tells you all is well. This is called the Sabbath in the Bible, or a period of stillness or rest. It is the interval that elapses between the subjective realization of your desire and its manifestation. The manner of manifestation is not known to you. That is a secret of subjective. My ways are past finding out. The answer or manifestation comes as a thief in the night. You know a thief comes when you least expect him. There is always an element of surprise. Perhaps when you are sound asleep, the thief will come. If you sit up watching and waiting for the intruder, he will not come. Likewise, we must go about our daily business, and the moment we think not, the answer will come. You are now at peace, made whole, so to speak. You do not have to assist this infinite intelligence. It is all-powerful. It would be foolish to try to add power to power. The trouble with many people is this. When they pray, they are tense, anxious, and impatient. They say, "I wonder when it will come." Others say, "Why has it not happened yet?" If I say why, it means I am anxious and lack faith. If I know a thing is true, I do not question my prayer. Let us remember, therefore, any time we ask why to ourselves or another, it means we have not reached a conviction within ourselves. When we possess something in consciousness, we do not seek it, we have it. Another point I want to stress here is, when a student questions, "How will it come?" he shows lack of faith and conviction. By illustration, I am now in Los Angeles. I do not ask, "How will I get there?" I am there. Similarly, when our ideal is fixed in consciousness, we do not wonder, "How will I get there?" I am there already. When your consciousness is, you are. Where I am, there you will be also. Case history. Case history number 1. Several years ago, the author was lecturing in the Park Central Hotel in New York City. A man spoke to me at the end of the meeting saying, "I desperately desire to go to Pittsburgh and I have no money." I said to him, "Did you hear the lecture?" He said, "Yes, but." I told him to ignore the doubts in his mind. We made a simple statement of truth together in that lovely lecture room. The statement was, "I am now at home in Pittsburgh with my people. All is peace and harmony." He was at home with them during those few minutes of silence in his imagination and feeling. He phoned me later saying, "I went to the restaurant and a man who sat next to me said, 'You know I am driving to Pittsburgh. I would love to have someone share in the driving. I would pay him also. Do you know anyone? You look like a mechanic.'" This was the way Infinite Intelligence answered this man's prayer. Case history number 2. I want to tell you of another experience I had in the Army. A young soldier said to me, "You know, before the war I tried to get into Bellevue Medical School for several years. I was always turned down, yet my marks were very high." This boy believed he was a victim of racial prejudice. He was attached to my battalion. We chatted one night about the laws of life. I discussed with him the relationship of the conscious and subconscious mind, which is given in detail in my book, The Miracles of Your Mind. I explained to him that his subconscious mind had the answer. It knew all and had the know-how of accomplishment. I reviewed with him some experiments that I had conducted several years previously with a refugee psychologist from Berlin. In one instance, a boy under these experiments became clairvoyant and described things taking place at a distance, which was subsequently verified. The boy also gave the location of missing articles and predicted accurately certain international incidents. We discussed the fact that infinite intelligence and wisdom is lodged in the subliminal mind of man. It is possible to tune in with it and to get it to work for us. According and apropos to the above conversation, the following experiment was suggested to him. At night, as he was about to fall asleep, he would imagine he saw a medical diploma inscribed with his name, stating he was a physician and surgeon. He felt this diploma with his hand and imagined the joy of it all. He made it real and natural by focusing his attention on the one thing, the diploma, the finished thing. Then he contemplated the reality of it. Believe that you now have it, and ye shall receive it. Call things that be not as though they were, and the unseen become seen. I told you before it came to pass, and when it is come to pass, ye might believe. These are perfect formulas for prayer. This boy went to the end. He asked himself this question: what actually would I receive to prove to the world that I am a doctor? The answer came: a diploma. In his imagination he saw the diploma and made it real. He went to sleep feeling the diploma in his hand. By example, you can close your eyes now and feel silk, mohair, and a fur coat on you. As you feel the naturalness of the fur coat, you will receive it. The sequel to the soldier's prayer is very interesting. This man said to me one morning, "You know, I have a feeling that something is going to happen, and that I won't be around here very long." This was the subconscious mind telling him all is well. We know sometimes by a hunch, an inner awareness, or feeling that our prayer is answered. Technically, we would say the idea has been subjectified or embodied in the subconscious. In truth, we would say the soldier accepted the idea in consciousness, and his inner knowing brought it to pass. The many words or phrases we use all illustrate the same thing, namely, he felt the reality of it. That is all that is necessary. The technique he used aided him in its fulfillment. The commanding officer called him in and informed him that in view of his pre-medical training, he was to take an examination. If he received good mark, he would be sent to a medical college at the expense of the Army. It ensued that he was sent to Stanford, not to Bellevue. My ways are past finding out. It had been explained to him that he did not have to go to Bellevue to be a doctor. Let infinite intelligence be the guide. In prayer, go to the end. Feel that you are now what you desire to be. Then infinite intelligence takes charge and acts on the thoughts, ideas, and actions of others, so that they aid us in the realization of our desire. In the same manner, a seed attracts to it all things, such as chemical, water, sunshine, air, etc., necessary for its growth. We are always using this principle, power, intelligence, and wisdom all the days of our life. When we lift our hand to write, we use this power and energy. In the same manner, when we breathe, we are using the same air. For example, I am writing now. The ideas expressed come from the one mind, common to all individual men. There is only one source, and that is God. We do not originate anything, for all ideas live, move, and have their being in God. This infinite being, consciousness, awareness, or whatever we choose to call it, is the only originator, the fountain of all. All men drink from this one source or spring. You will understand from these truths that when we look at the sun or a tree, we all see a sun in a tree, which shows that all of us are using the one mind. There is therefore no such thing as an atheist. There could not be, because he is using the mind, the power, and the intelligence, which is of God. He is alive, and the very life of him is God, for God is life. When he says, "I do not believe in God," you can see how absurd it is. He knows and he believes he is alive. Aliveness, awareness is God. As a teacher, I wish to point out that there is no teacher who could give you anything new. He could not. neither can he give you your truth. All any teacher can do is to awaken that which is already within you. You house God, as the book of Revelation said. The tabernacle of God is with man. As a teacher causes you to see the truth which was always there, he kindles a fire, if he is a good teacher. Then you warm yourself by its glow. But the glow, the fire, and the warmth thereof were always within you. The real teacher, if he has a good knowledge of truth, will teach you freedom and tell you frankly that you do not owe him any personal allegiance, since your heart belongs to God or the truth. To thine own self be true, as the night the day, thou canst then be false to no man. The teacher of truth will tell you, if you do not get anything from him, to go elsewhere where you will be blessed. We call our own. There is no competition in truth. You do not have to strive toward a goal, for the goal you seek already is, and through your treatment work you appropriate it by accepting the state desired in consciousness. All states coexist in the greater now, or any other dimension in your mind. It is like the keyboard of a piano. The music you wish to play is already in the piano. All you do is strike the proper keys and the chords to bring it forth. But the time where the sonata was always there. You do not create it. All you did was to recognize a certain composition and bring it forth. You can play on the piano, Pop Goes the Weasel, or a Beethoven sonata. The piano does not care. Similarly, look at the English alphabet. You did not create it. It always existed in infinite mind. With this alphabet, you can write a beautiful, magnificent drama of life, or you may write a gossip column that may cause some misguided person to commit suicide. We must strike the key to bring forth our music also. Our music is harmony, health, peace, true place or expression in life. We strike the proper key by contemplating the reality of the state sought now, feeling and believing ourselves to possess it. A simple illustration is as follows. Suppose you wish to sell a home for $20,000. This is the price you would pay for it if the tables were reversed. You are satisfied this is the correct price, and there is no quarrel in your consciousness. The next step is, as Troward says, to see the end. A simple way to do this is to take a little phrase that is easily graven on the memory, for instance, it is sold or it is done, and repeat it over and over again like a lullaby until you feel the naturalness and reality of it. This latter procedure is suggested by New Nancy School C. Baudin's book, Autosuggestion. The author has instructed many people in the sale of property as follows. See the check in your hand and feel the joy of accomplishment. Imagine that you have the check in your hand as seeing the end, and having seen the end, as Troward says, you have willed the means to the realization of the end. Infinite Spirit will attract you the person who wants what you have to offer. The price and the time will be right, and you will find the place will be sold in peace and harmony for all concerned. Let him that is athirst come and drink of the water of life freely. End of chapter. Chapter 4. The Magic of Faith. The purpose of this chapter is to teach you the spiritual truth of your dominion and freedom. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Proverbs 3:6. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hill, from whence cometh my help. Psalm 121:1. In the above verse from Proverbs, you are told to acknowledge the infinite intelligence within you, and it shall direct you in all ways. The answer to your problem will come when you turn in faith and recognition to the divine principle within. It was Shakespeare who said, our doubts are traitors, making us lose the God we oft might win by fearing to attempt. Fear holds us back. Fear is a lack of faith in God or the good. A man told me one time that he was a member of a sales force for a large chemical organization which had 200 men in the field. The sales manager died and the vice president offered him a position. However, he turned it down. He realized later that the only reason he rejected the offer was due to fear. He was afraid to attempt the responsibility. This man lacked faith in himself and his inner power. He hesitated, and the wonderful opportunity passed him by. This salesman came to me for consultation, and I learned he was condemning himself, for he was like a destructive mental poison. In place of condemnation, he began to realize that there were other opportunities. I explained to him that faith is a way of thinking, a positive mental attitude, or a feeling of confidence that what you are praying for will come to pass. For example, you have faith that the sun will come up tomorrow. You have faith that the seed you deposited in the ground will grow. The electrician has faith that electricity will respond to his proper use of it. A scientist has an idea for an ediphone. He proceeds to bring it to pass by having faith in the execution of the invisible idea. Opportunity is always knocking at your door. The desire for health, harmony, peace, and prosperity is knocking at your door now. Perhaps you are offered a promotion. Are you going to act like Peter of old, who walked on the waters? And when Peter came down on the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried, Lord, save me. Besides being historical, this drama of Peter and Jesus takes place in your own mind. Peter means faith, perseverance, and determination. Jesus means your desire, which, if realized, would be your Savior. Jesus comes into your mind as an idea, desire, plan, purpose, vision, or some new undertaking. The realization of your dreams, plans, or purpose would bring you and others great satisfaction and inner joy. This would be your Jesus. You must now call Peter, which is faith in the God power to bring all things to pass. Look at Peter and Jesus as dramatizations of the power of truth within you. Oftentimes, as you attempt something new, for example, a new position, doubt comes into your mind. This is Peter in you looking at the boisterous wind and sinking. This represents the impingement in your mind of the race belief in failure, lack, and limitation. You must cremate, burn up, and destroy that negative thought immediately. You must not suffer a witch to live, meaning you must supplant the negative feeling with the positive thoughts and success, peace, prosperity immediately, and give your love and feeling to these concepts. As you sustain this mood of confidence, you will become victorious. Doubt and fear hold men in bondage of sickness and failure. These false concepts cause you to vacillate, waver, equivocate, and hesitate to go ahead. The way to overcome is to increase your faith and awareness of your deep spiritual potencies. Be like Peter. He succeeded. Because he went forward, he had faith and confidence, knowing he would succeed. A general in the field cannot afford to vacillate and waver on the battlefield. He must come to a decision. Failure to come to a decision plus a constant wavering in the mind leads to a nervous breakdown and mental confusion. When you find yourself being pulled two ways, that is a sign of doubt and fear. Your good comes to you in the form of your desire. If you are sick, you wish health. If you are poor, you desire wealth. If you are full of fear, you desire faith and confidence. Jesus comes as your desire walking down the streets of your mind. There is another part of your mind which says, no, it can't be. It is too late now. It is impossible. This is the time to lift up your eyes unto the hills from whence cometh your help. That is, you lift up your eyes when you focus your attention on your good. Remember, faith can do all things. Thy faith hath made thee whole. According to your faith it is done unto you. You must appreciate the fact that your desire, idea, or dream is real, though it is invisible. To know that the idea is real, that it is a fact of consciousness, gives you faith and enables you to move over the waters of confusion, strife, and fear to a place of conviction deep in your own heart. Peter said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. Ideas are our lords and masters. Ideas govern and rule us. The dominant idea which you now entertain as your Lord, it generates its own emotion. Emotions compel you to express them. The dominant idea of success enthroned in the mind generates its own mood or feeling. This feeling compels you to right action, so that whatever you do under the mood of faith and confidence will be successful. The desire or idea of yours now is your Lord. Lord, if it be thou, bid me come to thee upon the water. Mentally appropriate your desire, kiss it, love it, let it captivate your mind, feel the reality of it. Is your desire lofty, inspiring, and wonderful enough to lead you forward? This ideal of yours is real, just the same as the idea of the radio was real in the mind of the inventor, or the idea of an automobile was real in the mind of Ford, or the idea of a house is real in the mind of an architect. It is not idle fancy or a daydream. Peter is within you. That is, Peter is faith, perseverance, stick-to-itiveness, and an abiding trust in an almighty power which responds to man's thought and belief. This formless awareness within you takes the form of your belief and conviction. It is really all things to all men. It is strength to you if you need strength. It is guidance if you need guidance. It is food and health also. Everyone has faith in something. What is your faith? Let it be faith in all things good, a joyous expectancy of the best, and a firm belief inscribed in your heart that infinite intelligence will lead you out of your difficulty and show you the way. You have a firm conviction now in the power of God to solve your problems and heal you. This faith in God enables you to walk all over the waters of fear, doubt, worry, and imaginary dangers of all kind. You know that error and fear are false beliefs without power. You know these negative states are false and groundless. Paul says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is from faith or feeling that all things flow. When you look down, you see mud, but when you look up, you see the stars. Similarly, when you say, there is no way out, I have no chance, you are looking like Peter at the winds of confusion, fear, and human opinion. But when he remembers where his power is, he looks up at Jesus, meaning that he looks at the solution, the way out, the happy ending, and ignores the winds of human intellect and the waves of race mind. The man of faith puts his trust in the invisible power within him. He knows this is the kingdom of the real. He knows that his ideal is real in the inner kingdom, and that his faith or feeling will cause the formless or the invisible to take on form as condition, event, or experience. This is why the man of faith walks upon the waters and moves in confidence and understanding to the promised land, his cherished goal. Faith is accepting as true what your reason and intellect deny. All great scientists, mystics, artists, poets, and inventors are gifted or possessed by an abiding faith and trust in the invisible powers within. Faith is trust. You trusted your mother when you were in her arms. You looked in her eyes and you saw love there. Your Peter is your faith and trust in God, the absolute lover, and it should be greater than faith in your mother. As you read this, turn your desire or request over to the subjective mind within you, acknowledging in your heart it is the answer and the know-how of accomplishment, and that its ways are past finding out. When you are relaxed and peaceful, you will know you have succeeded in impregnating your deeper mind. Signs follow. The wave of peace is a sign. This is the inner conviction. You now walk above all the waters of confusion, chaos, and false belief, because in a little while what you felt as true will be experienced. Troward says if a thing is true, there is a way in which it is true. Look at the magic and miracle-working power of faith in your own life. Behold the miracle which takes place as you drink a glass of milk. It is transformed into tissue, muscle, bone, hair, and blood in your body by the master chemist within. Look within for your Savior. Your true Savior is your thought and feeling. Blend these together and you have a holy covenant, a wedded bliss, the mystic marriage. Any idea or design impregnated with love is invincible. This is working faith. Blend Peter, faith, and Jesus' desire together and a miracle will happen. Case histories. Case history number 1. I visited a man in prison a few months ago. The first thought in his mind was freedom. This is symbolized in the Bible as Jesus walking on the waters of your mind. The prisoner was very bitter and cynical. I explained to him that he had placed himself in prison by his actions, which were contrary to the golden rule. He was living in a psychological prison of hatred and envy. He changed his mental attitude by calling forth Peter, which was his faith and an almighty power to bring to pass the cherished desire of his heart. I gave detailed instructions to this prisoner. He began to pray for those he hated by saying frequently, God's love flows through them, and I release them. He began to do this many times a day. At night prior to sleep, he imagined himself home with his family. He would feel his little daughter in his arms and hear a voice saying, Welcome, Daddy. All this was done in his imagination. After a while, he made this so real, natural, and vivid that it became a part of him. He had impregnated the subconscious with a belief in freedom. Another interesting thing happened. He had no further desire to pray for his freedom. This was a sure psychological sign to him that he embodied the desire for freedom subjectively. He was at peace, and though he was behind bars, he knew subjectively that he was free. It was an inner knowing. He no longer seek that which you have. Having realized his desire subjectively, he had no further desire to pray about it. A few weeks passed by, and this young man was liberated from prison. Friends came to his rescue, and through the proper channels, the door was opened to him for a new life. Case history number 2. A student in our Bible class stated that there was no way to save her boyfriend from losing his store. He could not meet the bills, even his automobile was attached. She was saying, It is impossible. I see no way out. It is just hopeless. She listened to one of our lectures on prayer and applied it that night. She said, I will walk upon the waters of doubt and negativity, and I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him will I trust. She anchored her mind on the following great truth. God's peace floods his mind, and God answers him. She remained in a quiet, passive state. She got into the mood of feeling that there was a solution for her boyfriend, and went off to sleep dwelling on the following wonderful truth of life. I stand still and I see the salvation of the Lord. This young girl knew that the Savior was in her own faith. She turned her eyes to the hills. These hills are always of an inner range. They are the hills of faith and trust in God which moves mountains. Reject mentally all sense evidence and look into the eyes of your Savior. This means to live in the emotional embodiment of your desire or ideal. The following day, her boyfriend called her and told her that a miracle had happened. A check was presented him the following day for $2,000 by a man who had borrowed this amount 10 years previously. It came out of the blue as a perfect response to her prayer of faith. End of chapter. Chapter 5, Steps to Happiness. Happiness is a state of consciousness. Faith and fear are modes of the soul. Your faith is a joyous expectancy of the best. Fear comes to challenge your faith in God or the good. You must look upon fear as man's ignorance of his false belief, which try to overcome his conviction in the good. Never entertain or accept the suggestion of sickness, weakness, or failure. If you listen to negative suggestions and become fearful, begin to affirm the truth of God, such as love, peace, joy, etc. Know that thought and feeling are the causes of conditions and experiences. Fear is based on the false belief that there are other powers and that external things and conditions can hurt you. Fear must leave you because it has nothing to sustain it. There is no reality behind it. Its claims are false. Come back to the simple truth. Only your thought has power over you, and the only one almighty power now moves on your behalf because your thoughts are in tune with the Infinite One. The man full of faith in God is never concerned about the future. When worry or fear knock at the door of his mind, faith in God opens a door and he is at peace. I met a farmer one time on the west coast of Ireland. I lived in his house for a few days. He seemed to be always happy and joyful. I asked him to tell me his secret of happiness. His answer was, "It is a habit of mine to be happy." This was the whole story. Prayer is a habit. Happiness is likewise a habit. There is a phrase in the Bible which says, "Choose ye this day whom ye will serve." You have the freedom to choose happiness. This may seem extraordinarily simple, and it is. Perhaps this is why people stumble over the key to happiness. They do not see the simplicity of the key to happiness. You can choose unhappiness by entertaining these ideas. Today is a black day. Everything is going to go wrong. I am not going to be successful. Everyone is against me. Perhaps you say to yourself, business is bad. It is going to get worse. Furthermore, you may say to yourself, the worst is yet to come. If you have this attitude of mind, the first thing in the morning, you will attract all these experiences to you, and you will be very unhappy. On the other hand, you can choose happiness. This is how you do it. When you open your eyes in the morning, say to yourself, all things work together for good to them that love God. Remember that in all languages, God and good are synonymous. Love is an emotional attachment. Continue to become attached to the good in the morning in this way. Look out the window and say, this is God's day for me. I am divinely guided all day long. Whatever I do will prosper. I cast the spell of God around me. I walk in His light. Whenever my attention wanders away from good or for God, I will immediately bring it back to the contemplation of God and His holy presence. I am a spiritual magnet, attracting to myself all things which bless and prosper me. I am going to be a wonderful success in all my undertakings today. I am definitely going to be happy all day long. Start each day in this manner, then you are choosing happiness, and you will be a radiant, joyous person. You can experience nothing outside of your own mentality. Your dominant mental mood is the way you think and feel inside about yourself, others, and the world in general. What is your present mental attitude? How do you feel inside? Are you worried, confused, angry, or concerned about other people's actions? If you are not happy, because you are dwelling mentally on limitation. Begin to anchor your mind on thoughts of peace, success, and happiness. This is really prayer. Do this frequently, then you will be like the Irish farmer who said, "It is a habit of mine to be happy." Your dominant mental attitude rules and governs all your experiences. Therefore, nothing can come into your world but the outpicturing of your mental attitude. Love all things good, and even the so-called enemies will be constrained to do you good. Oftentimes you read in psychological and metaphysical literature that the world you behold is the world you are. This means you can control your relationship with the world. The world you really live in is a mental world of thoughts, feelings, sensation, and beliefs. As a matter of fact, every person, circumstance, and experience you meet becomes a thought in your mind. How you mentally feel and react to life and conditions depend on what you believe about life and things in general. If your knowledge about life and the world is false, you can be very unhappy. If you have true knowledge and the right ideas, you can control your emotional reaction to life and have inner peace. You are now awakening to the truth that happiness is determined by what goes on in your mind. There is one very important point about being happy. You must sincerely desire to be happy. There are people who have been depressed, dejected, and unhappy so long that they were suddenly made happy by some wonderful, good, joyful news. They would actually be like that woman who said to me, "It is wrong to be so happy." They have been so accustomed to the old mental patterns that they do not feel at home being happy. They long for the former depressed, unhappy state. I knew a woman in England who had rheumatism for 20 years. She would pat herself on the knee and say, "My rheumatism is bad today. I can't go out. My rheumatism keeps me miserable." This dear elderly lady got a lot of attention from her son, daughter, and the neighbors. She really wanted her rheumatism. She enjoyed her misery, as she called it. This person did not really want to be happy. I suggested a curative procedure given in the Bible. I wrote down some biblical verses and said if she gave her attention to these truths, she would be healed. But she was not interested. There seems to be a peculiar mental streak in many people, whereby they seem to enjoy being miserable and sad. Jesus said, "If you know these things, happy are ye if ye do them." We should become as little children. The reason for this is that a child is happy because it is close to God. The child knows intuitively where to find happiness. You do not have to become old, dull, crotchety, petulant, and cantankerous. Neither do you have to become jaded and depressed in spirit. The simple truth of life, and not the opinions of man, produce and generate happiness within us. There are a great number of people trying to buy happiness through the purchase of radios, televisions, automobiles, and a home in the country. But happiness cannot be purchased or procured that way. The kingdom of God is within you, and the kingdom of happiness is in your thought and feeling. Too many people have the idea that it takes something artificial to produce happiness. Some people say, if I had $1 million, I would be happy. Others say, if I was elected mayor or the president of the organization, I would be happy. The answer is, we must choose happiness. We must make it a habit to be happy. It is a mental and spiritual state. Happiness comes through your daily visits with God and in silent communion with His holy presence. Begin now to eat the bread of the silence. You do this by meditating on the fact that in Him there is a fullness of joy. As you dwell in these words, imagine the joy and love of God are flowing through your mind, and heart is a living current of stream. Then you are stirring up the gift of God within you. The Savior is within you, but He is asleep. Awaken Him. It takes only thought to stir God into action. Every time you mentally reject the power of conditions and circumstance and recognize the presence of God in you, you are stirring up the gift of God within you. Wherever I put thee in remembrance, that thou stir up the gift of God, which is in thee. When your mind is clean and wholesome, when your eyes are dedicated and focused on God or the good, and when you have a child's heart, your mind is at peace, then you are full of goodwill and you are happy. Say to yourself every day when you awaken, God is my partner. If the day is raining, say with joy, how wonderful it is to see God in action. When you see snow falling, give thanks. When the sun shines, know it is blessing everywhere. Within you is the power to overcome any situation. You were born to win, to succeed, and to conquer. There is a great thrill in mastering a difficult assignment. The joy is in overcoming. Stand up against the problem now. Stand up that shining sword of truth and say, I go forth conquering and to conquer. The power of the Almighty is within you. It will reveal to you the perfect solution. It will show you the way you should go. Conquer and overcome every negative emotion in you. Love casts out fear. The peace of God casts out pain. Goodwill casts out envy. In the midst of all kinds of adversity, look for that which is good and that which is right. In other words, look for the divine answer. Turn within you now and say, every morning I will say, there is something happy on my way. Evil has no reality, for your evil is your disorganized mind. God is life, and life is forever seeking to express itself in ways of pleasantness and paths of peace. Its tendency is lifeward. The urge of life is progression. Life is seeking to express you as harmony, health, peace, joy, and happiness. These are the truth you are seeking. There is nothing but good in God's universal cosmic design. Enthrone in your mind the thought of the complete omnipotence of God, and that God is watching over you, guiding you in all ways. Let your mind be imbued with this idea, and the waters of healing will flow through you. As you focus your attention on these truths, you are making it a habit to be happy. Case history number 1. I knew an alcoholic in London who had sunk to the depths of degradation. When I met him, he was begging pennies on the street for drink. At one time, he was a highly respected lawyer. I spent some time with him in Hyde Park, telling him a few simple truths. I wrote these words for him to repeat. I surrender myself completely to God and His boundless love and goodness. My mind and heart are now open to the Spirit of Almighty God which flows through me now. God fills my mind and heart with His joy and His love. I do not see the wind, but I feel a breeze upon my face. Likewise, I feel God's presence stirring in my heart. God's river of love flows through me, and I am clean and made whole. I told him to relax and slowly articulate the above meditation 15 minutes 3 times a day. All that was necessary was sincerity and humility on his part. Then he was assured he would be free from the habit and blessed beyond his wildest dreams. This man became childlike in his simplicity. He fulfilled his promise. In less than a week he was engaged in a romance with God. Truly he touched the hem of His garment. As he meditated aloud, he imagined that the words were seeds sinking down into the soul. On the 6th day his whole being and his room were flooded with interior light which seemed to blind him temporarily. He was completely healed. Case history number 2. Lecturing in San Francisco some years ago, I interviewed a man who was very unhappy and dejected over the way his business was going. He was a general manager. His heart was filled with resentment toward the vice president and the president of the organization. They opposed him, he claimed, because of his internal strife. Business was declining. He was receiving no dividends. This is how he prayed and solved his business problem. The first thing in the morning, he used the following meditation. All those working in our corporation are spiritual, wonderful, godlike links in the chain of its growth, welfare, and prosperity. I radiate goodwill in my thoughts, words, and deed to the two associates and all those in the company. God's love and goodwill fill my heart for the president and the vice president of our company. Infinite intelligence and divine wisdom make all decisions through me. There is only right action taking place in our life. I send the messengers of peace, love, and goodwill before me to the office, and the peace of God reigns supreme in the minds and hearts of all those in the company, including myself. I now go forth into a new day full of faith, confidence, and trust. This business executive repeated the above meditation slowly 3 times in the morning, feeling the truth behind the words. He put life, love, truth, and beauty into the words, and they went deep down into his subconscious mind. When fearful or angry thoughts came into his mind during the day, he would say, God is within me now. After a while, all the harmful thoughts ceased to come, and peace came into his mind. He wrote me in New York saying at the end of the 2 weeks, the presidents and the vice presidents called him into the office, apologized, and shook hands with him, saying that the organization could not get along without him. He was so happy again. His happiness resulted from seeing God and the other fella and in radiating love and goodwill to all. True happiness comes to him as he began to practice the presence of God. Love frees, it gives, it is the Spirit of God. Love is the universal solvent, for love dissolves everything unlike itself. End of chapter. Chapter 6, Harmonious Human Relations. All things whatsoever ye would that man should do unto you, do ye even so to them. The first thing you learn is that there is no one to change but yourself. The above truth has outer and inner meaning. As you would that men should think about you, think you about them in like manner. As you would that men should feel about you, feel you also about them in like manner. As you would want men to act toward you, act you toward them in like manner. This biblical passage is a key to happy human relationships in all walks of life. Do you observe your inner talking? For example, you may be polite and courteous to someone in your office, but when his back is turned, you are very critical and resentful toward him in your mind. Such negative thoughts are highly destructive to you. It is like taking poison. You are actually taking a mental poison which robs you of vitality, enthusiasm, strength, guidance, and goodwill. The suggestion you give to the other, you give to yourself. Ask yourself now, how am I behaving internally towards this other fella? This interior attitude is what counts. Begin now to observe yourself. Observe your reaction to people, conditions, and circumstance. How do you respond to the events and news of the day? It makes no difference if all the other people are wrong and you alone are right. If the news disturbs you, it is your evil, because your bad mood affected and robbed you of peace and harmony. You do not have to react negatively to the news or the comments of the broadcaster. You can remain unmoved, undisturbed, and poised, realizing he has a right to his expression and beliefs. It is never what a person says or does that affects us. It is our reaction to what is said or done that matters. Mentally divide yourself into 2 people, your present mental state and that which you desire to be. Look at the thoughts of envy, jealousy, hatred, which may have enslaved and imprisoned you. You have divided yourself into 2 people for the purpose of disciplining yourself. One is the race mind working in you. The other is the infinite or the good self seeking expression through you. Be honest with yourself and determine which mood shall prevail. For example, if someone gossips about you or criticizes you, what is your reaction? Are you going to engage in the typical way by getting excited, resentful, and angry? If you do, you are letting the world mind work in you. You must positively refuse to react in this mechanical, stereotype, machine-like way. Say positively and definitely to yourself, the Infinite One thinks, speaks, and acts through me now. This is my real self. I now radiate love, peace, and goodwill to this person who criticized me. I salute the divinity in him. God speaks through me as peace, harmony, and love. It is wonderful. You are now a real student of truth instead of reacting like the herd who returns hate for hate. You have returned love for hatred, peace for hurt, goodwill for ill will. You have come into truth to think and react in a new way. When you came into truth, you make a new set of reactions to supplant the old. If you find yourself always reacting in the same way to people and conditions, you're not growing. Instead, you are standing still, deeply immersed in the race mind. You know that you do not have to accept negative thoughts. You can become what you want to by refusing to be a slave to old thought patterns. Become the real observer and practice observing your reactions to the events of the day. Whenever you discover that you are about to react negatively, say firmly, This is not the infinite one speaking or acting. This will cause you to stop your negative thinking. Then the divine love, light, and truth will flow through you at the moment. Instead of identifying yourself with anger, resentment, bitterness, and hatefulness, identify immediately with peace, harmony, poise, and balance. With this attitude, you are really practicing the art of separation. You are separating yourself from the old, or your present mental state, and you are identifying yourself for the new, that which you desire to be. You want to be the Christed one, the anointed individual, the illumined one, the God-man. Who does not? In order to become the ideal, you must identify yourself with all the qualities and attributes you wish to manifest. Remember this great truth. You do not have to go along with, believe in, nor consent to negative thoughts or reactions. Begin to positively refuse to react mechanically as you formerly did. React and think in a new way. You want to be peaceful, happy, radiant, healthy, prosperous, and inspired. Therefore, from this moment forward, you must refuse to identify with negative thoughts which tend to drag you down. Many women say, "How can I change my husband?" Another frequent statement is, "I would like to change Mary in the office. She is the cause of all the trouble." Many have heard the metaphysical's phrase, "See the Christ in the other, and all is well." However, most people do not know exactly what that means. It really means to become aware of the presence of God in the other, and to realize that God is actually being expressed through the thoughts, words, and actions of that person. To really know, accept, and believe this truth is to see the Christ in the other. There is no problem in human relations that you cannot solve harmoniously and for the benefit of all concerned. When you say that your associate in the office is very difficult to handle, that he is cantankerous, mean, and obstreperous, do you realize that in all probability he is reflecting your own inner mental state? Like attracts like. Birds of a feather flock together. Is it not possible that your associate's crotchety, petulant, critical attitude is a reflection of your inner frustrations and suppressed rage? What this person says or does cannot really hurt you, except you permit him to injure you. The only way he can annoy you is through your own thoughts. For example, if you get angry, you had to go through 4 stages in your mind. You begin to think about what he said. You decided to get angry and generate a mood of rage. Then you decided to act. Perhaps you talked back and reacted in kind. You see that the thought, emotion, reaction, and action all took place in your mind. You are the cause of your own anger. If someone called you a fool, why should you get angry? You know you're not a fool. The other person is undoubtedly very disturbed mentally. Maybe his child died during the night, or perhaps he is very ill psychologically. You should have compassion on him, but not condemn him. Realize God's peace fills his mind and his love flows through him. Then you would be practicing the golden rule. You would be identified not with anger or hatred, but with the law of goodness, truth, and beauty. Would you condemn a person who had tuberculosis? No, you would not. In all probability, if he told you, you would realize the presence of God, harmony, and perfection where the trouble was. That would be compassion. Compassion is the wisdom of God functioning through the mind of man, shown when you forgive all men and see the God in them. A person who is hateful, spiteful, envious, and jealous, and who says nasty, mean, scandalous things, is very ill psychologically. He is just as sick as the man who has tuberculosis. How are you going to react to such a man? Where is your truth? Where is your wisdom and understanding? Are you going to say, "I am one of the herd, I react in kind. I return spite for spite, hate for hate, and anger for anger"? No, you would stop and say, "This is not the infinite one acting through me. God sees only perfection, beauty, and harmony. I see therefore as God sees. Thou art of pure eyes and to behold evil, and cannot look at iniquity. I am going to see all men and women as God sees them." When your eyes are identified with beauty, you will not behold the distorted picture. Information or news is constantly brought to your attention all day long through the medium of your 5 senses. You are the one who determines what your mental responses are going to be in the news conveyed. You can remain poised, serene, and calm, or you can fly into rage, and as a result get an attack of migraine or some other form of pain. The reason 2 men react differently to the same situation is based on their subconscious conditioning. Your personality is based on the sum total of all your opinions, beliefs, education, and early religious indoctrination. This inner attitude of mind conditions your response. One man will fly into a rage when he hears a certain religious program, but his brother may enjoy it because one is prejudiced and the other is not. Our subconscious convictions and conditions dictate and control our conscious actions. You can recondition your mind by identifying yourself with the eternal verities. Begin now by filling your mind with the concept of peace, joy, love, good humor, happiness, and goodwill. Busy your mind with these ideas. As you do, they will sink into the subconscious level and become orchids in the garden of God. No matter where the problem is, how acute it may be, or how difficult the person may be, there is in the final analysis no one to change but yourself. When you change yourself, your world and environment will change. Begin with number one, yourself. You are not living with people, you are living with your concept about them. How are you now responding to John Jones, who is next to you on the bench? The fellow who works next to him likes him, his wife loves him, his children think he is wonderful. Perhaps members of his club believe he is generous, kind, and cooperative. Are you thinking of him as mean and petty? Are you resenting him? Who is this fella? Is he your concept, or all the others wrong? Would it not be wise to look within yourself and determine what it is in you that is causing him to be ugly or stumbling block to you? I am sure you will find it within yourself. Maybe you are saying to your son or father when you go home, "That fella Jones annoys the life out of me. He irritates me beyond words." You are so upset you cannot digest your dinner properly. According to your description, he is impossible. Where was Jones during the time you were saying all these things? Perhaps he was at the opera with his family. Perchance he was out fishing in the stream having a wonderful, glorious time. As a matter of fact, if someone said to you, "Where's Jones now?" you would answer, "I don't know." Be honest with yourself now and admit he is your own mind as a thought, a concept, or a mental image. You are revealing yourself in your own perturbed state of mind. Surely he is not responsible for your anger, tension, or upset stomach. You know in your heart, which is the place that matters, that you are responsible for your own thoughts about him. It is your negative, hostile reaction to him that is the cause of your trouble. You are the cause of your negative state. Ask yourself, who is thinking these things and who is feeling them? You are. Quimby used to say that the suggestions we give to the other, we give to ourselves. You can now see how true that is. As a matter of fact, that is the basis of the golden rule. Never to suggest to another or think anything about another that you would not wish the other to think, suggest, or feel about you. Watch your hidden conversations to yourself. How do you meet people in your mind when you are thousands of miles away? You may be nice to their face, but the way you think about them is what counts. If you are negative, you are poisoning yourself. Does it make any sense to go to a corner drugstore and say, "I do not like that fellow Jones, give me some poison. I want to take small doses of it several times a day"? You are answering now, "Oh, that is absurd." But that is what you do when you resent or are antagonistic towards others. You are actually taking mental poison, which saps your vitality, destroys your enthusiasm, and brings about a debility of the entire organism. There are mental corrosive poisons, just the same as there are physical corrosive poisons. They are just as destructive also. If you are now disturbed, agitated, and angry over the way someone has acted toward you, it means you have a very negative thought pattern in your consciousness, which you should heal instantly. Be sure that you are not one of those people who will give all the reason why they should be angry. Stop giving alibis. Cease all self-justification. How could you be justified in hating and resenting someone? Do you have a special license? If you do, who gave you this authority? If you are agitated toward another, you are responsible for your unhappiness. You should not defile the temple of the living God. Your mind should be a house of prayer. Do not make it a den of thieves. The thieves who rob you of peace, joy, health, and happiness are envy, jealousy, hatred, resentment, and anger. Refuse to harbor these gangsters and assassins. You do not have to go down the dark alleys and corridors of your mind to consort with thieves and ruffians. Go down the beautifully lit streets of your mind. Jesus or the truth is always walking down the streets of your mind saying, "Come to God and find peace, rest, joy, long life, and happiness." As you identify with these truths of God, you have found your Savior. What you identify with, you become. You are transfigured into the image of what you contemplate and feel is true. When you go to the factory tomorrow and meet the fellow or girl whom you say irritates you beyond words, quiet the mind and say, "He is God's Son, and God's love flows through the Christ or the presence of God in him. I see him through the eyes of God, and he is perfect, loving, peaceful, and cooperative." Repeat it quietly to yourself a few times, and go on about your business. Do not bother looking for results. You know results follow your changed mental attitude. If the old vicious thought of resentment or anger comes to you during the day, say to yourself quietly, lovingly, and positively, "What is true of God is true of him. I see him as God sees him. It is wonderful to behold God in action in myself and in him also." You are now observing yourself. Because you are refusing to yield to the evil thought, you are identifying with God or the good only. A complete healing will follow as you persist in your new way of thinking and reacting. You are, as the Bible tells you, transformed by the renewal of your mind. You have changed your mental and emotional reaction towards others. As a result, you have dominion over yourself. Now you can decree how your thoughts and emotions shall be directed. You are now a king over your own household or your mind. Your thoughts, ideas, and feelings are your servants. You issue the command. Their mission is to obey. You are here to control and not to be controlled by angry, wild emotions. Now when you say to yourself, "Who is the thinker in me?" you must answer, "I am." When you are thinking on whatsoever things are true, honest, just, lovely, and of good report, you are truly thinking. If you find yourself thinking negatively, it is the world mind thinking in you. Then you have lost control. The next time you are prone to resent someone, or when you say that you cannot get along with another, say to yourself, "When I look into his face, I am looking into the face of God. He is an incarnation of God walking the earth. I see God in him, and all is well. That thou seest man, that too become thou must. God, if thou seest God, dust, if thou seest dust." End of chapter. Chapter 7. How to Control Your Emotions. The ancient Greeks said, "Man, know thyself." As you study yourself, you seem to be made up of 4 parts. Your physical body, emotional nature, intellect, and a spiritual essence, which is called the presence of God. The I am within you. The divine presence is your real identity, which is eternal. You are here to discipline yourself, so that your intellectual, emotional, and physical nature are completely spiritualized. These 4 phases of your nature are called the 4 beasts of the book of Revelation. The revelation of St. John means God revealing himself as man. The real way for you to discipline and bridle your intellectual and emotional nature is by the practice of the presence of God all day long. You have a body. It is a shadow reflection of the mind. It has no power of itself, no initiative or volition. It has no intelligence of itself. It is completely subject to your commands or decrees. Look upon your body as a great disk upon which you play your emotions and belief. Being a disk, it will faithfully record all your emotionalized concepts and never deviate from them. Therefore, you can register a melody of love and beauty or one of grief and sorrow upon it. Resentment, jealousy, hatred, anger, and melancholy are all expressed in the body as various disease. As you learn to control your mental and emotional nature, you will become a channel for the divine and release the imprisoned splendor that is within you. Think over this for a moment. You cannot buy a healthy body with all the money in the world, but you can have health through riches of the mind, such as thoughts of peace, harmony, and perfect health. Let us dwell now on the emotional nature of man. It is absolutely essential for you to control your emotions if you want to grow spiritually. You are considered grown up or emotionally mature when you control your feeling. If you cannot discipline or bridle your emotions, you are a child even though you are 50 years old. You must remember that the greatest tyrant is a false idea which controls a man's mind, holding him in bondage. The idea you hold about yourself or others induces definite emotions in you. Psychologically speaking, emotions compel you for good or evil. If you are full of resentment towards someone or possessed by a grudge, this emotion will have an evil influence over you and govern your actions in a manner which has nothing to do with what you say is the original cause. When you want to be friendly and cordial, you will be ugly, cynical, and sour. When you want to be healthy, successful, and prosperous in life, you will find everything going wrong. Those of you reading this book are aware of your capacity to choose a concept of peace and good and will. Accept the idea of peace in your mind and let it govern, control, and guide you. Quimby pointed out that ideas are masters and that we are slaves to the ideas we entertain. The concept of peace with which you now live will induce the feeling of peace and harmony. Your feeling is the Spirit of God operating on a human level. This feeling of peace and goodwill will compel you to right action. You are now governed by divine ideas which are mothered by the Holy Spirit. Uncontrolled or undisciplined emotion is destructive. For example, if you have a powerful automobile, it will take you through the roughest country or to the top of a high hill. However, you must control the automobile. If you do not know how to drive, you may hit a telegraph pole or another car. Should you step on the gas instead of the brake, the car may be destroyed. It is wonderful to possess a strong emotional natural provided you are the master. Your emotions are controlling you if you permit yourself to get angry over trifles or agitated over practically nothing. If you get upset over what you read in the newspapers, you are not controlling your emotions. You must learn to blend your intellect and emotions together harmoniously. The intellect of man is all right in its place, but it should be anointed or illumined with the wisdom of God. There are many people who are always trying to intellectualize God. You cannot define the infinite. Spinoza said that to define God is to deny him. You have met the highly intellectual man who says that man cannot survive death because he does not take his brain with him. Somehow he is so clever he really believes the brain thinks by itself. Such a man is looking at everything from a three-dimensional standpoint. That is where the intellect ceases. The intellect, as I said previously, is all right in its place. For example, in our everyday work and in all kinds of science, art, and industry. However, as we approach the living Spirit, Almighty within, we are compelled to leave the world of the intellect and go beyond into the realm of spiritual values with our perfection and where dimension is infinity. When man's intellect is blended with the emotions of love, peace, and goodwill, he will not use explosives and knowledge of chemistry for the destruction of mankind. The reason man uses the atomic bomb, submarine, and other implements of warfare to destroy his fellow creature is because his spiritual awareness and knowledge lag so far behind his intellectual achievements. Let us see how emotions are generated. Suppose you observe a cripple. Suppose you are moved to pity. On the other hand, you may look at your young, beautiful child, and you feel an emotion of love welling up within you. You know that you cannot imagine an emotion, but if you can imagine an unpleasant episode or event of the past, you induce the corresponding emotion. Remember, it is essential to entertain the thought first before you induce an emotion. An emotion is always the working out of an idea in the mind. Have you noticed the effect of fear upon the face, eyes, heart, and other organs? You know the effect of bad news or grief on the digestive tract. Observe the change that takes place when it is found the fear is groundless. All negative emotions are destructive and depress the vital forces of the body. A chronic worrier usually has trouble with digestion. It sometimes very pleasant occurs in his experience that digestion becomes normal because normal circulation is restored and the necessary gastric secretions are no longer interfered with. The way to overcome and discipline the emotions is not through repression or suppression. When you repress an emotion, the energy accumulates in the subconscious and remains snarled there. In the same manner as the pressure increases in the boiler, if all the valves are closed and you increase the hardening of fire, finally there will be an explosion. Today in the field of psychosomatics, we are discovering that many cases of ill health, as arthritis, asthma, cardiac troubles, and failure in life, etc., may be due to suppressed or repressed emotions, perhaps occurring during early life or childhood. These repressed or suppressed emotions rise like ghosts to haunt you later on. There is a spiritual and psychological way to banish these ghosts which walk in the gloomy gallery of your mind. The ideal way is a law of substitution. Through the law of mental substitution, you substitute a positive, constructive thought for the negative. When negative thoughts enter your mind, do not fight them. Just think of God and His love. You will find the negative thoughts disappear. I say unto you that ye resist not evil. Matthew 5:39. If a person is fearful, the positive emotion of faith and confidence will completely destroy it. If you sincerely wish to govern your emotions, you must maintain control of your thoughts. By taking charge of your thoughts, you can substitute love for fear. The instant you receive the stimulus of a negative emotion, supplant it with the mood of love and goodwill. Instead of giving way to fear, say, "One with God is a majority." Fill your mind with concepts of peace, love, and faith in God. Then the negative thoughts cannot enter. It is far easier to cremate, burn up, and destroy negative thoughts at the moment they enter the mind, rather than try and dislodge them when they have taken possession of your mind. Refuse to be a victim of negative emotions through controlling your thought and thinking of God and His attributes. You can be master of all emotions and conditions. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. The book of Revelation deals with the control of the intellectual and emotional life of man. It says in chapter 4, verses 6, 7, and 8, "And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around about the throne were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had a face as a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. And the 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within. And they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come." The sea of glass before the throne means the inner peace of God, for God is peace. Deep in the center of your being, the Infinite One lies stretched in a smiling repose. It is the living presence of God within you. You stand before this throne. The throne is a symbol of authority. Your emotional conviction of a deep, abiding faith in the God power is your authority and consciousness. To say it simply, your inner conviction is your throne in heaven, because therein lies your power. According to your faith is it done unto you. Faith is a positive, emotional attitude, knowing that the God I seek is mine now. The 4 beasts forever before the throne are the 4 phases of your being: spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. In order to get your emotional nature of a spiritual basis, it is necessary to understand these 4 beasts. In doing so, you learn the gentle art of scientific prayer, which in the final analysis is the answer to all problems. Study these 4 potencies of consciousness. The lion is the king of the jungle. It means God, your I amness. Taurus means the bull or beast of burden. Your burden is your desire. You labor in your imagination to make your desire a part of your consciousness. Aquarius means the water bearer. It means meditation. The word meditation means to eat of God or your good. To feast upon your ideal. You pour water on your ideal, meaning you dwell upon and pour love on to that which is the water of life. Something happens as you mentally feast upon your ideal. You generate an emotion. The latter is the Spirit of God moving on your behalf. Your emotion is the Holy Spirit moving at human levels. God is a reactive, reciprocal power within you. Your emotion responds according to the nature of man. As you emotionalize your idea, it sinks into the subconscious mind as an impression. This is called the eagle or Scorpio, meaning the divine impregnation. These are the 4 stages of the unfoldment or manifestation of an ideal or desire. Whatever is impressed is expressed. The 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings. The 6 wings refer to the mental creative act. When idea and feeling blend together in harmony and faith, there has taken place a wedding ceremony in the mind. Knowledge of this mental creative act gives you wings, enables you to soar aloft above the storms and struggles of the world and find peace and strength in your own mind. Let us take an illustration explaining the story of spiritual and mental creation. In the name Jehovah is concealed the perfect way to pray scientifically, thereby bringing all discordant emotions under scientific control. Jehovah, Yod-He-Vah-He, is composed of 4 letters. Yod or Yod means God or I am. He means desire or idea. Van is feeling or conviction. The final He is the manifestation of what you felt is true inside. The 3rd letter, Vav, is considered the most important of it all. It enables you to feel that you are that which you desire to be. Walk in the mental atmosphere that you are now what you want to be. This mood will gel within you, and you will experience the joy of the answered prayer. The word Va also means nail. To nail your desire is to fix it in consciousness so that you are at peace with it. Remember, you do not have to live in a world of sickness and confusion created by your own errors or ignorance. You have the power and capacity to imagine and feel you are what you desire to be. As you completely accept your desire mentally, that you now are what you wish to be, through mental absorption, you have completed the name or the creative way of God as portrayed in the name Yod-He-Vah-He. In other words, you have completed the creative process in your own mind as outlined by Troward in his Bible Mystery and Bible Meaning. To know how to pray scientifically is to be able to control your emotions. More things are wrought by prayer than this world dreams of. Case history. Case history number 1. Let us take some case histories. A soldier who returned from Korea told me that when he was seized with fear, he would say to himself over and over again, God's love surrounds me and goes before me. This affirmation impressed his mind with a feeling of love and faith. This mood of love supplanted his fear. Perfect love casteth out fear. This procedure is the answer to the process of freedom from fear. Case history number 2. A mother whose only child died was grief-stricken. The grief was affecting her vision, and she suffered from migraine headaches. She was in a deep state of depression. I suggested to her that she should go to the hospital and offer her services in the children's ward. She was a former nurse. In offering her time at a local hospital, she began to pour out love on the children. She coddled them, cared for them, and fed them. The love was no longer bottled up within her. She became a channel for the divine and began to release the sunshine of God's love. She practiced sublimation, which was a redirection of the energy lodged within her subconscious mind. In this manner, she drained off the poison pockets of her subconscious mind. Case history number 3. A woman who comes to our meeting told me that she was accustomed to fits of temper and anger periodically by an action of neighbors. Instead of letting the anger and hatred affect her mentally and physically by pushing it back into the subconscious, she transmuted it into muscular energy by getting a gallon of water and washing the windows of the floors. Sometimes she would begin to dig in the garden, saying to herself aloud, I am digging in the garden of God and planting God's ideas. She would do this for 15 minutes at a time. When washing the windows, she would say aloud, I am cleansing my mind with the waters of love and life. The above illustrations are simple methods of working off negative emotions in a physical way. End of chapter. Chapter 8. Changing the feeling of I. If you say I to everything you think, feel, say, or imagine, you cannot transform your emotional life. Remember, all kinds of thoughts can enter your mind. All kinds of emotions may enter your heart. If you say I to all negative thoughts, you are identifying yourself with them, and you cannot separate internally from them. You can refuse to attach I to negative emotions and thoughts. You make it a practice to avoid muddy places as you walk along the road. Likewise, you must avoid walking down the muddy roads of your mind where fear, resentment, hostility, and ill will lurk and move. Refuse to listen to negative remarks. Do not touch the negative moods or let them touch you. Practice inner separation by getting a new feeling about yourself and about what you really are. Begin to realize that the real I in you is the infinite spirit, the infinite one. Begin to identify yourself with the qualities and attributes of this infinite one. Then your whole life will be transformed. The whole secret in transforming your negative emotional nature is to practice self-observation. To observe and to observe oneself are two different things. When you say you observe, you mean you give your attention to external things. In self-observation, the attention is directed inward. A man may spend his whole lifetime studying the atom, stars, body, and phenomenalistic world, namely knowledge of the internal world. This knowledge cannot bring about an interior change. Self-observation is a means of interior change, the change of the heart. You must learn to differentiate, to discern, to separate the chaff from the wheat. You practice the art of self-observation when you begin to ask yourself, is this idea true? Will it bless, heal, and inspire me? Will it give me peace of mind and contribute to the well-being of humanity, to you? Ask yourself, in which world do I live? Do I live in the world revealed by my five senses or in this inner world? It is in this inner world you live all the time. This is where you feel and suffer. Suppose you are invited to a banquet. All you see, hear, taste, smell, and touch belong to the external world. All that you think, feel, like, and dislike belong to the inner world. You attend two banquets recorded differently, namely one on the outer and one on the inner. It is in your inner world of thought, feeling, and emotion in which you rise and fall and sway to and fro. In order to transform yourself, you must begin to change the inner world through the purification of the emotions and the correct ordering of the mind through right thinking. If you want to grow spiritually, you must transform yourself. Transformation means the changing of one thing into another. There are many well-known transformations of matter. Sugar, through a process of distillation, is changed into alcohol. Radium slowly changes into lead, etc. The food you eat is transformed stage by stage into all substances necessary for your existence. Your experiences coming in as impressions must be similarly transformed. Suppose you see a person you love and admire, you receive impressions about him. Suppose, on the other hand, you meet a person you dislike, you receive impressions also. Your husband or daughter sitting on the couch as you read this to you, what you conceive him or her to be. In other words, impressions are received by your mind. If you were deaf, you would not hear their voices. You can change the impressions of people. To transform your impressions is to transform yourself, to change your life, change your reactions to life. Do you find yourself reacting in stereotypical ways? Is your reactions negative? That is your life. Never permit your life to be a series of negative reactions to the impressions that come to you every day. In order truly to observe yourself, you must see that regardless of what happens, your thought and feelings are fixed on this great truth. How is it in God and heaven? This will lift you up and transform all your negative thoughts and emotions. You may be inclined to say that other people are to blame because of the way they talk or act. But if what they say or do makes you negative, you are inwardly disturbed. This negative state is where you now live, move, and have your being. You cannot afford to be negative. It depletes your vitality, robs you of enthusiasm, and makes you physically and mentally ill. Do you live in a room where you are now, or do you live in your thoughts, feelings, emotions, hope, and despair? Is it not what you are feeling about your environment now that is real to you? When you say, "My name is John Jones," what do you mean? Is it not a fact that you are a product of your thinking, plus the customs, traditions, and influence those around you as you grew up? You are really the sum total of your beliefs, opinions, plus what you have derived from your education, environmental conditioning, and countless other influences acting upon you from the external world and entering through your external senses. Perhaps you are now comparing yourself with others. Do you feel inferior in the presence of a person who seems to be more distinguished than you are? Suppose you are a great pianist. When someone praises another pianist, do you feel inferior? If you have the real feeling of I, this would not be possible. For the true feeling of I is the feeling of the presence of the Infinite One in you, in which there are no comparisons. Ouspensky used to point out that people became upset easily because their feeling of I was derived from negative states of consciousness. The feeling of I was one of his favorite expressions, and some of his ideas are incorporated in this chapter. I said to a man in our Bible class recently, "Have you observed your typical reactions to people, newspaper articles, and radio commentators? Have you noticed your usual stereotype behavior?" He replied, "No, I have not noticed these things." He was taking himself for granted and not growing spiritually. He began to think about his reaction. Then he admitted that many of the articles and the commentators irritated him immensely. He reacted in a machine-like manner and was not disciplining himself. It makes no difference if all the writers and commentaries were wrong, and he alone was right. The negative emotion aroused in him is destructive. It shows lack of mental and spiritual discipline. When you say, I think this, I think that, I resent this, or I dislike this, which I is speaking? Is it not a different I speaking in every moment? Each I is completely different. One I in you criticizes one moment. A few minutes later, another I speaks tenderly. Look at and learn about your different I's and know deep within yourself that certain I's will never dominate, control, or direct your thinking. Take a good look at the I you are consorting with. With what kind of people do you associate? I am referring to the people that inhabit your mind. Remember, your mind is a city. Thoughts, ideas, opinions, feelings, sensations, and beliefs dwell there. Some of the places in your mind are slums and dangerous streets. However, Jesus, your Savior, is always walking down the streets of your mind in the form of your ideal, desire, and aim in life. One of the meanings of Jesus is your desire, for your desire, when realized, is your Savior. Your aims and objectives in life are now beckoning to you. Move toward them. Give your desire your attention. In other words, take a lively interest in it. Go down the streets of love, peace, joy, and goodwill in your mind. You will meet wonderful people on the way. You will find beautifully lighted streets and wonderful citizens on the better streets of your mind. Never permit your house, which is your mind, to be full of servants which you do not have under control. When you were young, you were taught not to go with what your mother called bad company. Now when you begin to awaken to your inner powers, you must make it a special point that you do not go with wrong eyes or thoughts within you. I had an interesting chat with a young man who studied mental discipline in France. His procedure was to take, as he said, mental photographs of himself from time to time. He would sit down and think about his emotions, moods, thoughts, sensations, reactions, and his tones of voice. Then he would say, "These are not of God, they are false. I will go back to God and think from the standard of rock or truth." He practiced the art of inner separation. He would stop when he got angry and say, "This is not the infinite one, the real I speaking, thinking, or acting. It is the false I in me." Return to God like this young man every time you are prone to get angry, critical, depressed, or irritable. Think of God in heaven and ask yourself, how is it in God in heaven? There is the answer to becoming the new man. This is how you become spiritually reborn or experience what is called the second birth. The second birth is internal discipline and spiritual understanding. The saint and the sinner are all in us. So are the murderer and the holy man. Likewise are God and the world mind. Every man basically and fundamentally wants to be good, to express good, and to do good. This is the positive in you. If you have committed destructive acts, as for example, if you have robbed, cheated, and defrauded others, and they condemn you, and they hold you in bad light, you can rise out of the slum of your mind to that place in your own consciousness where you cease to condemn yourself. Then all your accusers must still their tongues. When you cease to accuse yourself, the world will no longer accuse you. This is the power of your own consciousness. It is the God in you. It is foolish to condemn yourself. You do not have to. It is idle to keep company with the thoughts of self-accusation. Suppose you committed acts of injustice, criminal acts, or other dastardly crimes. It was not the God in you that did these things. It was not the real I or the infinite one. It was the other self, the world mind in you. This will not, of course, excuse you from your responsibility, no more so than if you put your hand in the fire, you get burned. But if you pass a red light, you'll get a ticket for a traffic violation. The other self represents the many I's in you. For instance, the many negative ideas and beliefs that there are powers outside your own consciousness, the belief that others can hurt you, the elements are unfriendly, plus the fears, superstitions, and ignorance of all kind. Finally, prejudices, fears, and hates drive and goad you to do that which you do not otherwise do. The ideal way to change a feeling of I is to fix to the real I within you, everything that is noble, wonderful, and godlike. Begin to affirm, I am strong, I am radiant, I am happy, I am inspired, I am illumined, I am loving, I am kind, I am harmonious. Feel these states of mind, affirm them, and believe them. Then you will begin to truly live in the garden of God. Whatever you affix to the I am and believe, you become. The I am in you is God, and there is none other. The I am or life, awareness, pure being, existence, or the real of you is God. It is the only cause, it is the only power making anything in the world. Honor it, live with the feeling, I am Christ, all day long. Christ means the anointed one, the awakened one, the illumined one. Feel you are this anointed one. Continue to live in that mental atmosphere, then you will draw out the Christ, wisdom, power, and intelligence of God within you, and your whole world will be transformed by that inner light shining in your mind. Every time you feel, I am the Christ, I am illumined. I am inspired. You are praying and qualifying your consciousness with the thing you are praying about and with the thoughts you are thinking. As you continue to change the feeling of I, as outlined above, you will populate the heavens of your mind with God's eternal verities. Fear not, for I am with thee, and through the rivers I shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned. Who is that one? It is your own I amness. It is the light or awareness within you, which always goes before you whithersoever thou goest. Your dominant mental attitude or atmosphere is going ahead of you all the time, creating the experiences you will encounter. Keep in mind that when you pray about any specific thing, it is necessary to qualify your mind with the consciousness or feeling of having or being that being. You mentally reject completely the arguments in your mind against it. That is prayer. Qualify your conscience with the thing you are praying for by thinking about it with interest. Do this quietly and regularly until a conviction is reached in your consciousness. As you do this, the problem will no longer annoy you. You will maintain your mental poise, plus the feeling of, I now feel that I am what I long to be. And as you continue to feel it, you will become it. Here is the law. I am that which I feel myself to be. Practice changing the feeling of I every day by affirming, I am spirit. I think, see, feel, and live as spirit, the presence of God. The other self in you thinks, feels, and acts as the race mind does. As you continue to do this, you will begin to feel you are one with God. As the sun in the heavens redeems the earth from darkness and gloom, so will the realization of the presence of God in you reveal the man you always wished to be. The joyous, radiant, peaceful, prosperous, and successful man whose intellect is illumined by the light from above. God causes the sun to shine on all men everywhere. No man can take away the sunshine of God's love from you. No one can place you in the prison of fear or ignorance when you know the truth of God which sets you free. The feeling that the I am in you as God reveals to you that there is nothing to be afraid of, and that you are one with omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. No one can steal health, peace, joy, or happiness from you. You no longer live with the many eyes of fear, doubt, and superstition. You now live in the divine presence and in the consciousness of freedom. Ask yourself, who is it that takes charge of me at every moment and speaks in his name, calling itself I? Never identify with this other man. Fear, prejudice, pride, arrogance, condemnation, etc. You now realize you need not go in the direction of negative eyes. You will never again say yes to any idle, negative thought. Neither will you give it the sanction and signature of yourself. Become the observer by keeping your eyes fixed on God, the real I, the infinite I within you. Feel the sense of I on the observing side, and not in what you are observing. Feel that you are looking out through the eyes of God. Therefore, thou art of pure eyes, and to behold evil, and cannot look on iniquity. End of chapter. End of book. This audio presentation of Magic of Faith by Joseph Murphy has been brought to you by AudioEnlightenment.com and has been recorded for the exclusive use of Audio Enlightenment members only. If you have received this audio from any website other than our own, please visit our website. Let us know at your convenience.